didn't hear no bell, diehards and degenerates. How is everybody doing this week? Happy Monday to you. We are coming off of just a brutal UFC 312, and I believe that I have solidified myself as the worst gambling content creator on planet Earth. If they were going to make a round Rushmore, I mean, I am on the short list for having my face carved into stone at this point. I got whooped at UFC 312. Shocking. I know. The craziest part about it, you guys, it could have been worse. How's everybody doing? My guy Dream in the chat letting us know right out the gates that hopefully he can make it later. Hopefully you can join us, Dream. Hopefully you're here live with us. If not, and you're catching the replay, special shout out to you for always being here, my guy. Colby Saul in the house. We got Dix Insider, MMA Clips. We've got Nathan Moon, Tyler Ray, Andrew Nance, Louis Mac Jr. What's going on, everybody? Aaron Lucky Day, MMA Banished. How we doing? Yeah, so Banished right out the gates, coming in hot with Clint. You got to trust your balls. The Zurong pick was money. You guys, I have never been so frustrated in my life. So I'm on like a full calendar 365-day free fall skydiving plummet as far as my bankroll is concerned. I couldn't hit water if I fell out of a boat. And even when I do finally start to get things back on track, it just swings immediately back. Something in the old ticker is wrong right now. Something's not clicking in there. And if I had just done exactly what I said I was going to do, like all I had to do was follow through with my own damn plan, we would have profited last week. On the Undefeated Post Weigh-In show, last week on Monday's episode, I called Zurong for the upset, and I called Zurong by decision at plus 750. And especially on Friday, that was the move. That was the play. I told you guys that was the move. I told you guys that was the play. And then we went and visited my parents. You may not think that's a big deal. But we had to load the car up. The second I clicked end on my stream right here for you guys, it was a mad dash to the car, get the dog, get the daughter, get every buckled in, drive for hours, bathroom pit stops, Taco Bell on the road because we're just trying to get there as fast as we can. They live several hours away, so it's a whole dang car trip. And then, of course, when I get there, first thing I'm doing is not just pulling out my phone, right? Like I'm hanging out with my parents. We don't get to see them very often. They don't get to see my daughter very often. Spend some quality family time. And I'm blurry-eyed. It's 11 o'clock at night. I'm laying in bed, not my bed, staring at my phone, trying to remember. And I just completely spaced betting Zurong. Oh, my Lord. I cannot believe that I made that mistake. Like, because I had been talking about it for literally an entire week, and I literally just forgot to put the damn bet in. And I tweeted about it during the fight because we're about a round in, and it hit me like a ton of bricks that I forgot to make the bets. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I tweeted out my final action and everything, and it wasn't on there. My usual 2 unit on Zurong bet plus the half unit shot on Zurong by decision. That would have swung me from the -6 units that I'm currently sitting on now to being positive for UFC 312. The win was right there. The win was in my hands. Even with all the other mistakes I made, I had a win, and I let it go. I am so frustrated, you guys. I'm making some drastic changes right now to the way I'm handling things because I am just, even when I'm seeing the board clearly, like something is wrong with the information from me making the pick to clicking the right bets, and I'm just off. So I'm going to do whatever I can to hit the reset button. I'm going to be lowering my volume on plays. I'm going to become more solid on the things that I'm going to be playing. And yes, Joe, with the question, why when I tweeted on Saturday morning, why didn't I take it on Saturday morning? I don't know. I know. I posted it. I posted it for everybody. And I still didn't click the button. I spaced it. I forgot. I can't believe I forgot. And this is how you guys know I'm not a professional gambler, right? This is how you guys know that I'm a degenerate and I'm a podcaster and I'm an entertainer. I literally forgot, even with that being my safety net, being the one that would have, caught me my own final post on Saturday morning. I just copy and pasted my action. I was cooking. I actually burned the shit out of my hand. I was cooking breakfast. I posted the picture of the bacon that I was cooking for my family. And so we were doing pancakes. We were doing bacon. I was hanging out with my dad and my daughter. And I burned my hand. And so, again, just a lot of normal, stupid shit happened over the course of those 2 days. And I just copy and pasted the action that I had. So I didn't go back and add another bet. My brain told me it was there and it wasn't. I'm an idiot. That's all this comes down to. Quick recap, because I've already rambled long enough to start this show here for you guys. Anshul Jubilee, I took the sprinkle. I did a half unit on the money line. Terrible stoppage. I mean, he got flatlined on the first punch, and he didn't look great when he landed because he was covering and protecting his head, but you're also supposed to defend yourself as a fighter, so he kind of was doing what he was supposed to do. He pops up and immediately grabs a leg. I mean, Salkild was probably going to win that fight anyway, right? He's a 5-1 underdog. We knew Salkild was probably going to win that fight anyway. But just don't get me with the early stoppage. At least let it play out. At least actually let him get finished instead of stopping it that quickly, because it's MMA, man. You just never know how a fight is going to play. He could have recovered. He could have bounced back. Maybe he wrestles from there. I've seen Salkild put on his back before. Again, it probably didn't matter, right? I'm fully admitting that Salkild probably wins that fight. It probably doesn't matter, but just a horrific stoppage. Absolutely terrible stoppage. I talked about not wanting to trust Kevin Jousset because, hey, it's Kevin Jousset. And Jonathan came out and looked like a completely different human being. This is a perfect fight for us to log in the memory banks and point back to from now on and just be like, guys, remember, when you see somebody on tape, when you see them the next time in the octagon 6 to 9 months later, they could be completely renovated. And that's exactly what happened here, because Jonathan came out and looked like a completely different human being, outstruck Kevin Jousset, which is something I never would have picked. Zurong, my best read so far of 2025, came out and did exactly what he needed to do. I didn't understand the Cody Steele hype, guys, to be honest. I said it a couple different times. And frankly, the people I trust in this industry, the people who I look to, everyone was talking up Steele so much that I thought something was wrong with me. I was like, what am I missing? What am I missing? Because I don't get this. And I think I wasn't missing anything. Turns out I was the one that was right. That hasn't been happening very often lately. Topuria did what Topuria does. I thought he was going to get the KO. Looks like he's maybe a little bit more on the safe side. He got the win, did what he needed to do. Kong Wang, absolutely another one that just it could have gone my way in a big way. I had the round 2, round 3 finish props at plus 650 and plus 10 to, I'm sorry, it was 1,000 plus 10,000. No, 10 to 1. Sorry, plus 1,000. Bruna Brazil decided she was losing that fight, didn't want to take any additional damage. Kong Wang got hit with one big shot and went, you know what? I'm not going to do this again. I'm not screwing this up again. I'm getting the win. And they both just went into conservation mode. So the finish was on the silver platter for Kong Wang. It was there anytime she wanted it. And instead, she chose to take the path of least resistance. As a fighter, I can't blame her for making that decision whatsoever. Her income and her well-being depends on those kinds of things. So she did what she needed to do, but it was highly unfortunate because I really thought I was going to hit that 10 to 1 round 3 sprinkle, and she just didn't want it. Tom Nolan, I came this close, you guys, to betting Slava, and I know a lot of people bet Slava. A lot of people this week went down with the ship on Slava. I said I wanted plus money. And for all the times recently where I've needed to trust my balls and I need to step on the gas pedal and I really need to get in there and trust my reads, I actually hesitated for the right reasons for once. I said I wanted plus money on Slava, and people told me I was being greedy. He hit minus 120, and I was this close. I almost did it. Didn't get my plus money, held to what I believed I needed, and passed. And that saved me a penny because Tom Nolan looked fantastic. in that fight. I mean, way better than I expected. I don't know if he's on some new supplements or what, but the kid's durability looks like it's way improved from anything that we've seen in the past. And Borshev checked him a couple times with some big shots. So maybe the future is a little brighter for Tom Nolan than I was giving him credit for. Gabriel Santos came out and did the dang thing for me. Got the sub as expected. I thought the sub special or the Hail Mary parlay, I thought we were going to hit a big one after we got that sub. But Francisco Prado let us down in the next fight. Jake Matthews, I got to tell you guys, my reads on Jake Matthews have still just been crystal clear, absolute perfection. I got the exact fight that I wanted from Jake Matthews. I just overestimated Francisco Prado a little bit too much. 22-year-old kid, probably fighting in the wrong weight class at 170 pounds. It was a good fight. It was too much for him at that point in time. But I will tell you guys, if they book that fight, Neil Magny versus Jake Matthews, bookmark this tweet. Like, I know it's a live video, you can't do that, but I will bet Neil Magny against Jake Matthews. That'll be a smash spot. I said, please just give me even money in that fight. And people were like, bro, Neil Magny's so cooked, you'll get plus 200. Please give me plus 200 on Neil Magny in that fight. I will take it. I don't care how old he is. He's worst case scenario for Jake Matthews. Jimmy Crute came out and did Jimmy Crute things. Rodolfo Bellato, by the way, guys, is 205-pound Nate, the trained Landwehr. If you don't kill this guy on the first try, he ain't getting out of there. We've got to appreciate the comeback ability of Rodolfo Bellato. And we also have to take into full account that 2 years later, Jimmy Crute is still the same exact Jimmy Crute. He's improved. Some of his technical stuff is a little bit better. The striking was on point, but he did the same thing he always does. He came out hard in round one. He got figured out in round two. He had no answer in round three, and he was hanging on for dear life. We got another Jimmy Crute draw. How did none of us play the draw? Like, how did we not play the draw on the Jimmy Crute fight? Like, it's staring you right in the face, 50-1. He's done it before. Like, why didn't we think about this? Justin Tava gets nuked. I completely shortchanged Taliesin Teixeira, you guys. That was just an amazing elbow that he landed, perfectly placed, well-timed. Tava falls like a freaking, he just crumpled, absolutely crumpled. Beautiful shot from Taliesin Teixeira. That kid might be exciting. I was a little sus, but he may actually be the goods. And then 1-1 on the co-main in the main event. Dricus closed out my parlay. I was right. He looked like value at minus 200, but I thought he was going to get the finish. I needed the fight doesn't go the distance. He broke Sean's face in round 4, and I thought this was it. Like, we're getting it. We're getting that finish. And Sean went full defense mode, similarly to the Kong Wang situation, where Dricus just couldn't get back in there and put one more good one on him to get him out of there. That would have broke me even for the night, you guys. If I had gotten the parlay with Dricus and then also the fight doesn't go the distance, like, it would have been like a minus like 0.3 type of night. So just a couple of situations, small bounces. It was one of those nights where I had a couple good reads, a couple bad reads, obviously a bad bet or two, but I also was this close on a couple of them that I could have very easily broken even on this event. The Tatiana Suarez read, oh my God, she is just not as athletic as she should be, or as she was. I'm not, it's got to be the injuries. You know, that's one of those things where week before last week, I tried to go against the market. You know, everybody was on Faraz and I tried to buy low on Mike Davis, and then Paintgate and all that stuff happened. So unfortunate. I feel like I made the right move there. This time I was on the side of the line move, and I get hosed on that side too. I thought the way this line was just driving Tatiana's way, I thought somebody knew something. I thought Zhang was the one who had some kind of an injury or something like that. Zhang's just incredible. She's Marab in a two-piece, you guys. Like, she just whooped the ass of Tatiana Suarez for 25 straight minutes. That was painful to watch with money on Tatiana Suarez. And I know a lot of you guys were with me. The whole community seemed to be on Tati this week. So we all kind of went down in flames together. So it was a rough event. Again, a couple of decent reads. If I had caught just one or two bounces, it would have been a break-even night for me. But c'est la vie. It is what it is. We will move on. We've got a fresh dumpster to dive into. And I've got one of my absolute favorite guests joining us here on the show tonight. None other than the man himself, James Lynch. What's going on, James? How you doing tonight?
What's up, Clint? I'm glad to be here. Happy to talk some fights with you, man.
Yeah, man, it's been too long. Good to have you back on the show. Thank you for joining me. How'd you end up doing last week? Did you have anything flying around on UFC?
Yeah, I was on Suarez too. That one I got a lot of crap for. I don't think it was a bad pick. I mean, like you were kind of describing, we had the Tatiana that we've seen in past fights and the Tatiana that we saw on Saturday, not taking anything from Weili Zhang, but like it was a different version, right? And so I think sometimes it's tough to gauge, or it's tough to look back on a pick and think that it wasn't the right pick. And I, again, this is the typical thing that happens when a fighter loses in dominant fashion. Everyone's saying, oh, she was overrated, all this different stuff. And it's like, I still think Tatiana beats most women in that weight class. She's got really good wrestling. We saw that on display in the first round. I don't have a regret about that pick. Credit to Weili Zhang. She looked amazing. She put on an absolute clinic. I want to see her at 125. I think that would be interesting. But, looking back, I just think that was one of those fights where we didn't really know, because Tatiana, not that active. Big jump going up from Jessica Andrade to Weili Zhang. So that was one. And then I think other than that, I think my picks, I think I ended up going like 7-4. I think there was a couple, Tom Nolan one. I wish I would have bet him. I was on the fence on that one. I couldn't pull the trigger. And then, just a couple other surprises on the card, but did have Duplessis by decision. Kind of figured that was the case. Sean's not, tough to take out. But yeah, it was an interesting card. I'll just leave it at that. So
yeah, it was an interesting card, man. I thought it was going to be a lot better than it was. I thought we were in for some serious violence. You know what I mean? And it was crazy how few of those fights finished. And even like I mentioned, the main event, after you get a fractured nose, like who fixes it in fight and then keeps going for another, 10 minutes or so, punching each other in the face. Pretty wild that we didn't get more of those finishes on that kind of a fight night. And the Jimmy Crute and Bellato fight going the distance, what a wild outcome, especially considering how it started with Bellato doing the full Johnny Walker stanky leg.
I know.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Crazy night. Well, thank you so much, my friend, for joining me here on the show. Let's go ahead and just dive straight on into it, you guys. We got a fun card to talk about on this one. Do me a favor, hit the like if you haven't already. Give James a follow, of course, if you don't know who he is. One of the absolute best interviewers in the entire game. And you know what? I apologize real quick before we get going. We got a super chat here from Mac Jr. saying, how could you forget Zurong for that? Shout out my guy, Dan Levy, with all the Zurong jokes last week. My goodness. He says, I tailed you, though, and I was going to parlay steal instead. Hammered Zurong money line. Thanks, Zoo. I like that. Mark, thank you for the dono there for that. Appreciate it. I'm glad I got you on Zurong and saved you some cash avoiding that Cody Steele parlay piece. Let's go ahead and get into this fight, you guys. First fight of the night. Gabriel Bonfim takes on Khaos, the Ox fighter, Williams. And James, we have got both Bonfim bros in business for the first time in a long time on this card. It's going to be interesting to see how this one goes. We've got Khaos Williams filling in on short notice in this spot. And you guys know me. I love Khaos Williams. This guy he's got the right attitude. He fights hungry. He's got that death touch. Like when he hits people and really goes with his hands, he hurts people. Extremely durable. He's never been finished before. Seems like his defensive stuff is on point, and he's just got a brick for a head. He's got an absolute steel chin, which he's probably going to need in this kind of a fight. Now, Bonfim here, this is 16-1, the 27-year-old brother here, king of the club and sub. This guy's got very fast hands, very solid boxing. And when he clips people, then the very first thing he does is look for a choke. And he's got that tight squeeze, man. He is absolutely vicious and deadly with those submissions. But he got kind of exposed by Nicholas Dalby. When things didn't go his way in round one in that fight, Dalby was able to just kind of pick and poke at him and push him. And he blew his gas tank and got finished in the second round, which is something not many people are getting finished by Nicholas Dalby out here these days. So kind of a bad look on that one. Got that fraud check, if you will. Comes back, gets a win over Ange Lusa, and that is just a huge low ball, get on track kid type of spot where Ange Lusa hasn't really done much right in the UFC. So minutes, they're getting Gabriel Bonfim some minutes out there and getting some time under his belt, letting him learn how to really pace himself and get the full 15-minute decision. I believe that was the first decision he had ever gone to in his career. Yeah, that was the only one he's ever been to in his entire professional career. We've got Gabriel Bonfim once again James sitting as a decent-sized favorite here, minus 230 for Bonfim, plus 190 for my guy Khaos Williams. And I am extremely tempted to jump in here on my guy, the dog, again. It looks like Khaos is going to have about a 5-inch reach advantage, which I don't think that's something that Bonfim is going to be used to experiencing. I don't know if that's something he's going to be quite ready for. And when you look at these two guys, I have seen Bonfim hurt. I have seen Bonfim finished. Hell, I've never even seen Khaos Williams rocked before. This guy just eats punches to the face and doesn't flinch. His head doesn't move. He just steps forward and starts swinging yet again. I believe Bonfim is probably the cleaner striker, but what we've been seeing a lot recently is some fighters are just not built for war, and then other fighters are. Khaos seems to me like he's the kind of guy who's built for war. If it stays pretty, Bonfim wins this fight. Maybe if he catches that neck, he'll be the first one to finish Khaos. But if it turns into a fight, Khaos is going to find a way to win this fight. I kind of like Khaos Williams to start the night, man, and this number's going up a little bit. Plus 190s starting to pop up out there. And you know what, James? I got to pull the trigger on it, man. Dog of the week, first fight of the night. We're going to go Link Memorial Dog of the Week, Khaos Williams. I like this guy. I like him a lot. I've enjoyed all of his fights since he's been in the UFC. And frankly, I think this is almost a step down in competition from some of the guys he's been fighting. You know, Carlston Harris, Randy Brown, he went to a split decision with Randy. I was there live at UFC 274 for that one. I was actually sitting next to his family for that fight that night. So, I mean, he's fought some serious competition, and Bonfim is getting an unexpected guy here to fill in on short notice, someone he's not necessarily ready or prepared for, somebody who's got a whole lot more power in his hands. He was supposed to be fighting Rinat Fakhretdinov, who frankly is a mauling, grappling wrestler, somebody who, has been this close to the fraud check himself a couple of different times. You know, Carlos Leal, I think he won that fight the last time out. So it seems like the UFC was putting him in kind of a do or die situation here. I think Khaos is a worse stylistic matchup here for Bonfim than Rinat Fakhretdinov was. What do you think of this fight, man? What are you doing?
It's an iffy one. I don't know if I can outright pick Khaos. I talked about this on my show this morning where I do think the odds are off. Like Khaos Williams is, like you said, he's only lost decisions. The other decision was close that he had the last fight with Randy Brown. My thing with Bonfim though is you got to factor in the age. He's a little bit younger, 3 years. I feel like at some point he is, going to get better. He's going to sort of break through and have the fight. And not to mention, he's the one who's had the full camp here, right? Khaos Williams taking this on short notice. The thing that always worries me about Khaos Williams is that he can never seem to get any momentum going because he doesn't fight that much. That's a bit concerning, right? Like I think Khaos would be more of a name that we'd be talking about in the division, but for whatever reason, he's just like a fights once a year type of guy. Like I'm looking here at his last fight. It was back in May of last year. And I know that Bonfim himself has got a bit of a layoff too, fighting in July, but this is one that like, I'm probably just going to avoid because I just think that like, what Khaos are we going to get? Either we get like a first round highlight reel finish or he goes to a decision and you never know which way it's going to go. That's kind of scared me away from betting him. And again, I think there's the fact that he's a little bit older. And I think with Bonfim, you mentioned it there. I think he's the better technical striker. I'm going to go on a limb here. I know this is a bit, this might be a hot take. I don't know. I think this fight goes the distance. I think it's going to be close. I don't think that Khaos Williams is going to be able to knock out Bonfim. We saw Dalby, like you mentioned, not much of a finisher here. But again, I think he sort of evolved from that. I think that it will, they're going to trade some blows. It's going to go, back and forth. But ultimately, I think that technical striking of Bonfim is going to be the difference in this fight. And I think he's going to edge this one out. Again, I feel a little bit better about picking a guy who's a little bit younger, a little bit more active. That for me, I think is going to get Bonfim the win. I'm not betting this fight. I'm kind of just going to sit back and, watch this one because to me, they're two really inconsistent guys. I mean, if Bonfim had never lost to Dalby, I think I'd be more, inclined to go on that side, but that does stick in the back of my head. And that's why I can't bet him, but I also can't bet Khaos with such a short notice either. So Bonfim decision is going to be the pick here.
Okay. All right. It's a little bit of disagreement right off the bat. That's okay. You love to see it. That makes it more interesting for the chat anyway. We've got over 300 people in here live already hanging out with us, James. Guys, do me a favor. Hit the like button, please, if you haven't already. Get subscribed if you're not. My guy, Steph, in the house. What is up? Welcome to the show. All right, guys, next fight up. We've got Angie Overkill Hill taking on Ketlen Souza. Women's MMA at its finest right here. You guys know me. I am all team Overkill. I love this chick. Angie Hill is a national treasure. She needs to be protected at all costs. She's hilarious. And the fact that she's 40 years old still kind of blows my mind. Like, she does not look act or fight like somebody who is 40 years old, James. I hope my knees work as well as hers do in a couple of years, because I'm getting close to 40 myself. Jeez, I don't even want to think about that. But she's 2-2 in her last 4, and she's been fighting a solid level competition. Luana Pinheiro, Denise Gomes, Mackenzie Dern, Tabitha Ricci. I mean, we've known Angie Hill to fight around the top of the division her entire career, right? Like, she kind of floats in the middle. She gets that step up. She takes the loss to, Amanda Lemos or Verna Jandiroba, and then she gets the step down and she beats the Ducotis and the Pinheiros. She is right smack in the middle. I hate to say it. She's never going to wear gold. She's never going to challenge for a title, but she's always going to be relevant. And in women's MMA, some of these older fighters, they age like fine wine, James. Like, I just don't see her slowing down at this point. She's also a late bloomer. That's something that people need to take notice of with Angela Hill. She got to the sport late. So while some of these people have just miles and miles on their body, training for fights, wrestling before they got into MMA, etc., she didn't find, I think it was Muay Thai that was her first sport. She didn't find that, I think, until she was like in her late 20s. So she has far less miles on her body at 40 that she may legitimately be the type of person who can fight until they're 42, 43 without acting like your normal MMA lifelong 38-year-old. You know what I mean? So I think we've got to give a little bit of respect to Angie for being able to last a little bit longer than people might expect. Her opponent, Ketlen Souza, 29 years old, coming into her prime. Ooh, she's on a good little run here, James. She is on a 2-fight winning streak after dropping her UFC debut. It was a bit of a fluky sub loss to Karine Silva when she came in. It looked like something popped, more of an injury necessarily than like a real submission. Obviously, jiu-jitsu people might say that she, blew her leg out with the sub. So, a little column A, little column B. But Mardik, man, she gets the win. That was an easy peasy spot. I actually bet her that night. And then the win over Yasmin Horegi, she upset the apple cart in a big way. Plus 400 underdog, I want to say, in that spot. She came out throwing big hooks. She was aggressive. She came forward. She didn't respect Yasmin Horegi at all. Landed a bomb on her, took her back, choked her out. Absolutely stunning performance, especially at Noche UFC, where Yasmin Horegi looked like she was being put in a spot to kind of shine. So looking back on Yasmin's career, we're kind of starting to see the chinks in the armor. We're kind of starting to see that she's, not necessarily the most durable. She doesn't really like getting tagged. And so you got to wonder if that's really all Souza or if it was a little bit who she was fighting. Angie Hill is one of the only people I've ever seen go toe-to-toe with somebody like Amanda Lemos and just never flinch. Like, this girl is as durable as it gets. You're not going to hurt Angie by tapping her on the chin. It's not going to happen. She's made massive leaps and bounds in her grappling game, so you're not going to submit Angie Hill. In fact, she did something that Jillian Robinson couldn't do. She came out and tapped Luana Pinheiro a couple of fights ago. So her ground game is improving at this late stage of her career. You guys know the one all-important, all-encompassing angle in women's MMA betting is actually in play in this spot, James. You always back Brazilian lesbians with neck tattoos. It's completely the number one angle, undefeated hit rate. I don't think I can do it this time, you guys, though, because I can't go against Angie Hill in this spot. We're looking at a line that is trending very close to pick'em. Angie Hill looked like the slight favorite, I think minus 120 a day or so ago. So some money is coming in here on Ketlen Souza as the dog, and the line looks like it may flip. Give me plus money on Angie Hill, James. I'm going to sit tight. I'm going to relax. I'm going to just see how this goes. Angie Hill is known for being in split decision type of fights, but I don't think Ketlen Souza is going to be able to pressure her the way she did Yasmin Horegi. I think the Muay Thai chops of Angie Hill are going to be too good. She'll use that footwork. She'll use that clinch. She'll disrupt her in those moments. And then we've seen Souza be a little shaky on the ground. She can be knocked off balance. She can be taken down. I think Angela Hill might actually have a grappling advantage in this game, believe it or not. I like Angela Hill for the win. It might be a close competitive fight, but I think she gets her hand raised.
Yeah, I agree with you. This might be one of the, well, I'm sure we'll see how the rest of the card goes, but yeah, I think when it comes to Angela Hill, so you mentioned that, obviously she was a bit of a late bloomer. That's actually true, because if you remember when she was on The Ultimate Fighter, she only had 2 pro fights. So she got in, she was kind of learning on the job when she first got in the UFC, went to Invicta, kind of built her way back up, and she's been in the UFC ever since. There's 3 things that are certain in life, Clint. There's death, taxes, and Angela Hill going the distance. It's either a split decision that she wins or a split decision that she loses. Save yourself the heartache in this fight. Take the over, take the fight goes the distance. You don't have to worry about any judging, anything like that. Listen, I think Angela Hill is a better fighter than Souza. She's fought better opposition. She's not easy to finish. Hill's not much of a finisher herself. So that's kind of the way I'm looking. I know you're not going to get great odds on those, but maybe that's a parlay situation or whatever. I don't know, but you can kind of look at it there. But I've seen too many Angela Hill fights where people call robbery or say things happen. Save yourself the heartache and just bet the fight goes the distance, because for whatever reason, Angela Hill, I know not recently, but it has seemed like a lot of times she's losing split decisions in fights that she should win. And this seems like a perfect spot where it could happen, where she's fighting someone that's younger, maybe a little bit more active. So yeah, I'm also taking Angela Hill. I believe on most books she's a slight favorite right now, but even with that, like, I don't feel good about betting her, just because at some point the age is going to catch up to her. So I think for now, just take the fight goes the distance, but I will pick Angela Hill to win a decision here.
You know, James, the only reason that I'll kind of buck that on this one and not agree with you, because you're right, death taxes and Angie Hill by decision, it's a thing.
Split decision, to be clear. Split decision.
To be specific. Very true. She holds the record for most split decisions in the organization, I think. Ketlen Souza has been finished on 4 different occasions. And I know she was young. You know, I know that's one of those things where you got to look back and be like, well, she was young. But she's been knocked out twice, and she's been submitted twice. She got TKO'd with leg kicks. Ariane Carnelossi, of all people, knocked her out earlier in her career. So the fact that she's been finished not once, but twice, and it does seem like Angie Hill has put an emphasis on being a little bit more violent and leaving less to question in her last couple fights. You're not finishing Tabitha Ricci. We've seen that. It just ain't happening. You're not finishing Denise Gomes. She's built out of iron. Mackenzie Dern, you better have Limos level power if you're expecting to finish Mackenzie Dern. But the one opponent she got that was a little bit weak, Luana Pinheiro, she took her out. I actually think Angie Hill might be able to finish Souza in this spot. So it would be money line for me. And not only that, James, but I don't think the bookies are going to give you a great deal. If it's like minus 105 Angie Hill, they'll give you plus 105 on the decision prop. Like they're not going to do you any favors with her going to a decision. If it's a big sexy number, I change my tune. You know, if it's plus 160 or something like that, Angie decision, I don't see why it would be. But if it is, you know, maybe we're having a bit of a discussion, but I wouldn't expect they're going to give us any kind of a great deal considering her history. But I'm glad we line up on this one nonetheless. It's going to be fun. I can't wait to watch Angie get out there again. I know there's not just like a massive horde of people clamoring for Angela Hill merchandise, but hey, I'm one of them. I love Angie, so I want to see her compete. All right, guys. Next fight up, Rafael Estevam takes on Jesus Aguilar. And I had to poke a little fun of myself on this one, James, to start the day here. My last time breaking down a Jesus Aguilar fight, I went out on a limb, and I'm sorry, not the last time, I guess. He's had 2 fights since then. But when he fought Shannon Ross, James, I straight up was like, look, this guy's fast. He can box. He's got a sick guillotine on him, but he's got no power. He's got no power in his hands whatsoever. I was like, Shannon Ross is going to make this a very competitive fight. Don't trust this guy. There's a lot of hype on him. I don't get it. This is going to be a close fight. Yeah, he nuked Shannon Ross in about 60 seconds. It was one of the most ridiculous one and done type of punches I've ever seen. And now, again, with the benefit of hindsight, we know that Shannon Ross is one of the least durable fighters on the UFC roster, or at least was before he got let go. So I still, to some extent, think that I am right. But Aguilar took my breakdown of his abilities pretty personally that night. And similarly, when he fought Stuart Nicole, I picked Nicole with some kind of my full chest. Like, I was so ready for this guy to come in here and take out Jesus Aguilar. The one thing that I said in that fight, James, all he's got to do is avoid the guillotine. He wins this fight literally everywhere it goes. Just don't stick your neck in the guillotine, man. That's all you got to do. What does he do? Immediately just pops his neck right out there. And Jesus Aguilar has one of the nastiest squeezes you'll ever see. His guillotine is intense, and he took that fight home in round 1. Frankly, guys, I love Aguilar. I'm a fan. Like, he's a real fun dude. Seems like he's got a well-rounded skill set. He's only 28 years old. I know he looks like your 37-year-old uncle, but he's only 28. He's on a 3-fight win streak right now. Got the split decision win over Mateus Mendonca, too, in what was a pretty fun fight. He's an exciting guy. He really is. But I still, to this point, kind of think he's a little fraudulent, James. Like, the knockout win doesn't mean anything to me over Shannon Ross. The Nicole win with the guillotine choke, I think that happens 1 out of 10 fights. I don't think that's going to happen if they run that back. He got him that night. Props to you. You're supposed to get out there and perform your best and get the win on the night the way you're supposed to. I don't think it would happen again if they ran it back. Now, Rafael Estevam, this kid has been gone for a while. He's 28 years old. He trains out of Nova União. He is a BJJ black belt. And, those are all things I like. I like Nova União as a gym. I like that he's a BJJ black belt. It looks like he's really big for the weight class. In his first UFC fight, he missed weight against Charles Johnson. The problem is, like with a lot of these guys, he's really big and he cuts a lot of weight. So in the third round, he started slowing down big time. I mean, he put on a wrestling clinic against Charles Johnson. The first 2 rounds, CJ couldn't get away with anything. He got put on his back. He got backpacked. It was all control time. He was able to stay safe in all those positions. But then you started to see Rafael started to wear down a little bit, started to get a little tired. And in the round 3, Charles Johnson damn near got that TKO finish. He came back with a vengeance, sprawled on a couple of desperate takedowns, and really started to put it on him. So from that first UFC fight, Rafael's a grappler almost exclusively. Didn't have a whole lot of striking to speak of and a questionable gas tank. And now here he is coming back as a minus 360 favorite with Jesus Aguilar plus 280. And gosh dang it, James. I think if he doesn't get guillotined, he wins this fight. I'm gonna say it again. If Rafael Estevam doesn't get guillotined, I think he wins this fight. But I can't trust him. I can't trust him after a long layoff, and I can't trust his gas tank. That's one of the things I need to be better about. I always say, don't bet on bad gas tanks, don't bet on quitters, and don't bet on bad fight IQ. And I've kind of gotten away from that a little bit recently, which probably has a lot to do with my poor results. I am not going to parlay Rafael Estevam. I was this close, James. I was this close. I put him in a parlay, and then I deleted it. I did not lock it in because I think he wins this fight. But Aguilar could get this guy out of there based on cardio and pressure and pace. And he always has that emergency shoot pull of that nasty guillotine that if Estevam makes one mistake, Aguilar could send him home in a box. So pass for me. Favorite or pass, but pass for me.
Yep, read my mind. We're going the exact same way here. I talked about on my show this morning too. I think the odds, there's a couple fights on this card where I think the odds are totally off. Like, he's a minus 330 favorite because he beat Charles Johnson. That's the only reason why. And you mentioned it there. He missed weight in that fight too. He might miss weight in this fight as well. He's a big guy for the weight class. What's interesting, I forgot Aguilar actually missed weight in his last fight too.
I forgot that
something
too.
that keep in mind as well in some of their fights. But I was at that Aguilar Shannon Ross fight. I too was like, where did this come from? This was crazy. And then of course we know after this, yeah, like you said, Shannon Ross, not the most durable guy in the weight class. But yeah, I have this thing now where fighters that don't have a ton of experience in the UFC, I'm a little weary of. I know that sounds weird. It's obviously a case by case basis, but he's got the one fight against Charles Johnson. And I think this is like something like a case. And I can just tell you this by the minus 330 favorite that I think they're putting way too much stock into that win over Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson fights him now, it might be a different fight. Charles Johnson has looked much better since November of 2023. Other than that, we've seen his wins on Contender Series. He fought some decent opposition in Shudo prior to that, but I'm still a little leery here. So yeah, I would not put him in a parlay. I think we've seen, this happened last week with Cody Steele, where Cody Steele was a big favorite and everyone was like, well, he's the next big thing. And then it's like he lost, right? So it's like, I'm very much like, I don't want to call it like in Contender Series curse, but I think that you see a lot of fighters where they come into the UFC, all everyone remembers is their fight in Contender Series, and they just sort of romanticize about that fighter and think, oh, they'll never lose. But we've seen too many examples of that where that hasn't taken place. Now again, he's beat Charles Johnson. That's a win that has aged quite well considering what Charles has done. But being minus 330 against a guy who's got more UFC fights, I don't know about that. So yeah, I am avoiding this one. I will take Estevam to get it done. I don't know if he finishes Aguilar. If you look at Aguilar's couple losses, I know his Tyra was one. Tyra's probably submitting a lot of guys in that weight class. Mm-hmm. This might go a little bit later. Maybe Estevam finds the finish, but he couldn't finish a Charles Johnson. I know that's easier said than done. Kind of leaning decision here. I know that's kind of nuts, but I just think it's one of those things where he'll just utilize the reach, pick his shots, maybe not go for the kill here. Again, it's been a long layoff coming into this fight. I'm kind of leaning more that way here, but no way I'm betting this fight. There's no way.
I completely agree. I think he's going to have a very, very hard time putting Aguilar away. And I would expect him to kind of have to hang on for dear life the same way he did against Charles Johnson. Aguilar, the one thing I will say is he's gonna jump that guillotine. We've seen him on his back more times than not. And I think that's actually going to help out Estevam as far as extending this fight goes. The resistance isn't going to be there. Charles Johnson refused to go down. He was putting his hips into everything. He was trying to fight off those takedowns. Aguilar is going to go, okay, bro, let's go. And jump guillotine, put his feet up in the air and land on his back. So because of that, I think Estevam's not going to have to work as hard. I think he'll be able to just kind of top time him. And then Aguilar's going to have to be the one working back up from his back. And that's exhausting. So I actually think there's a chance that Estevam looks a little bit better in this fight just because of the style, the way that Aguilar kind of chooses to put himself in those poor positions. I think that'll help Estevam out. I like the decision call, James. That might be a good look here, is Estevam by decision if you guys are looking for a prop way to play this one. My guy Jazz G Money says, bring back the Coyotes. I know, man.
Yep,
I know.
I agree.
But hey, my boy Dylan Gunther over in Utah has been closing the show.
I told you I went, right? So I got to see them in Utah in December. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Not a great arena for hockey, I got to be honest, because I was telling you this, that because it's a basketball, like it's set up for basketball, if you're on the side that I don't know which side it is, I guess it's the side that's facing the logo. If the players go into the boards on like closer to you, you can't see them. You have to look at the Jumbotron because they literally disappear if you're upper bowl. So that's something they got to figure out. But you know,
man, and see, and they're giving us all crap in Arizona for how bad the stadium was over here, and they got, you know, just as bad over there. That's the owner's fault.
It's not a fan thing. I know you guys support your team quite well. It's once they get a new owner, they'll be back. Gary Bettman wants to go back. They're third largest TV market in the United States. There's no way they're not going back. They just need the right owner. Someone will come along and get them.
Yeah, fingers crossed, man. I can't wait. We're missing them over here bad. I love my Coyotes, so it's going to be tough, especially because if they do like an expansion draft or something, it's going to be a mishmash of people. It won't be my team. You know what I mean? I love the core they've got right now. So I'm going to be weird and I'll cheer for Utah all the way out here from the desert.
Oh, there you go. Okay. I like
all right, guys. Next fight up, we got Valter Walker, the clean monster, and he's taking on Don'Tale Mayes. Oh my Lord. There couldn't be a messier, sloppier heavyweight fight unless you somehow made it a tag team match and threw Hamdi Abdelwahab in the middle of this one, James. Valter Walker is a complete mystery to me, man. He's a total enigma. This man is a giant. He is massive. He's only 27 years old. He's the complete and utter opposite of his brother. Like, how did these two people come from the same parent of any kind? Whether it's one or two, I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't make any sense. Johnny Walker is tall and skinny and shredded, and he's fast and he's athletic. Valter is a tank and he's thick, and the boy can grapple, but he can't strike to save his soul. Like, they're complete opposites. It's insane. In his last fight, he had that very controversial submission win over Junior Tafa. The heel hook, the verbal tap that I guess never happened. You know, it's a really weird situation. Thankfully, I had him that night, so I'll take it. I don't catch many bounces like that these days. I'll take it. But before that, he had an absolute awful outcome, losing a decision to Lukasz Brzeski. That's not something that you can make up or get back. That's a black mark on your record forever. So not a good look for Valter Walker. He's got cardio problems. If he can't get on top of you and just kind of top time you, it doesn't even look like he's got the ground and pound for the most part to be able to get people out of there. He ends up just kind of holding. The UFC is going to let this guy go as soon as he hits 2 losses in a row if he doesn't fix that real quick, because they are chopping some serious talent if they're not entertaining. And Valter does not look like he's an overly entertaining fighter if it wasn't for the controversy of his last fight. Don'Tale Mayes, you guys know my long, storied history of betting on and against Don'Tale Mayes. This man goes in the bad fight IQ category. He is the captain of the bad fight IQ trash can. He will not do what you want him to do. And on top of that, James, he's just never realized the athletic ability that I think he has. This is a massive man. He can be light on his feet. He's got power. He can wrestle. And I just kept on waiting for him to turn that corner. Come on, Don'Tale, turn that corner, man. I thought he was going to show up and just be a monster one of these days. And I really thought we had it. When he knocked out Andrei Arlovsky, I was like, that's the one. That's going to be the one that catapults him in his career. He's really going to make a run for it. And he's just never changed. He alternates wins and losses in every single one of his outings here. literally since 2021, if you're not counting the no contest with Hamdi. He's gone win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. He's coming off of getting just smothered by Shamil Gadzhiev. Now, Gadzhiev, we know, is a big, thick, meaty monster of a man, so not overly shocking there. But he gave up 2 takedowns on just 3 attempts, 0 resistance whatsoever, and gave up 12 minutes of control time, James. 2 takedowns, 12 minutes of control times in a 15-minute fight. Horrendous. Now, I don't believe that Valter Walker is nearly the prospect that Shamil Gadzhiev is at this point. Maybe he is. We'll find out. I'll believe it when I see it. But I think Shamil is in a different category, at least at this stage. But the writing is pretty clear on the wall here. The UFC sees a weakness. It's something Don'Tale's got to overcome and prove that he's not going to fall suspect to again. Otherwise, man, he might be looking 1 foot out the door as well here. What we're looking at from a betting perspective, you guys, if you want to see the line on this one, we have got Don'Tale Mayes is a plus 185 underdog. Valter Walker is the minus 225 favorite. And I mean, this feels gross, James. This feels really gross. I think I have to pick Valter Walker pre-flop, but you guys, I'm never laying that price tag on this, man. I will never lay minus 200 on Valter Walker. What I will say is this will be the target live bet of the night, James. I'm going to be watching this fight with my finger hovered over the button, because if Don'Tale Mayes shows me that he can get to an elbow and get to a hip, and he can work his way back to the fence, that plus 185 is going to look real good when round 2 starts and Valter Walker is huffing and puffing and can't get that second takedown out there. This thing all comes down to Don'Tale Mayes. The problem for me, can't trust Don'Tale Mayes. So I'm going to pick Valter, but there's a very clear path to victory here for Don'Tale Mayes, and he is the more well-rounded fighter. He is far and away the better striker. I want to see him win. It's just a matter of whether or not he'll be ready to defend those takedowns.
I'm going the other way here. I'm going Don'Tale Mayes. Now,
let's go.
So, I mean, first off, I've known Don'Tale for, like, I interviewed him before he was even on Contender Series. So I've known him for a long time. And you're right. Like, he was very much hyped up to be like this big heavyweight prospect. It hasn't panned out that way. How I look at this fight is, you mentioned how big Valter Walker is. Him and Don'Tale Mayes are the exact same height, but the reach advantage goes to Don'Tale Mayes. Now, I think that's interesting because if he's able to utilize the striking a bit, maybe that's an advantage for him. You look at who Don'Tale Mayes has been finished by, it's mainly by submission. Well, Valter Walker's only got 2 wins by submission. He's got a couple knockout wins. The last guy to knock out Don'Tale Mayes, do you know who it was? Cyril Gane.
Off the top of my head, I don't. Okay.
Cyril Gane. He's a pretty damn good fighter. I don't think Valter Walker's anything close to that. So my thing is, this fight could end up being close if there isn't a finish. I don't think Walker's going to submit him. He might, but I don't think he has the same ground game as, you know, some of the other guys that he's fought. I agree with the fight IQ thing and just the performance in general. Like, it's never like a good idea, but why is he such a big favorite here? Is it just because he's got Walker's last name? Like, I don't really know. Like, what has he proven? Like, even his last fight, like you said, it wasn't like a clean win. It was just like kind of a weird finish, and he ends up getting it. And then he loses to Bresky. And this is a guy who's only got 2 UFC fights. As far as opposition, Mayes has been in there with, I mean, not the best of the best, but he's still, you know, he's been in there with, you know, Cyril Gane. He's been in there with guys at a higher level. He's fought way more experienced fighters in the cage than Walker has, in my opinion. So you're getting Don'Tale Mayes at plus 180. You know, it's not super confident, but that's like not bad odds on a guy that I think should probably win this. So, yeah, I'm going Don'Tale Mayes, and I might lay a little bit on him at plus 180 just because I don't get why Walker is such a big favorite here, in the sense that, like, he hasn't really shown me a whole lot. And I think, I don't know, maybe it's because he's younger, but not even. Like, he's only a couple years young. Like, Valter Walker is, I'm just looking at it here. He's 27. Yeah, 6 years. So, okay, a little bit of a difference there. But again, Mayes is, you know, he's been in the UFC for a while. At some point, he's got to break through. And if we're going by the pattern, he should win this fight, right? Because he never loses 2 in a row. So I'm going Don'Tale Mayes here. It might not be a great pick, but whatever. I don't care.
That really is the key here, is that Lord Kong alternating wins and losses, you guys. Yeah. If you follow the pattern, he's in for a win in this next fight. James, I love it. I love the bold call. For me, I don't know if I can do it pre-flop. Don'Tale Mayes by decision might actually be a fun way to play that, because it will be greasy. And when those split decision numbers drop, you know, DraftKings always has the split decision prop. I want to see what Don'Tale Mayes by split specifically comes out to, because, man, we could be looking at like a 15 or 18 to 1 type of prop on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Yeah, I'm going to have to probably, like I said, I'm going to wait. This is going to be a live bet spot for me because I just need to see what Dontel's looking like in round one, make sure he's not out there quitting on himself, something weird like that. And if I see what I like, I'll jump in on the dog. But if he just goes out there and lays on his back, I think that's what this number really is coming from, James, is the fact that Shamil did what he wanted. You know, he didn't even have to try. Like Dontel just laid down, put his feet up on the ceiling and was like, all right, cool. Like we just hang out here on the ground. And if you do that again against Valter, he's going to do the same thing. It's going to be no problem.
Does Valter do that though? That's my big thing. Like I just don't like, maybe I'm underrating him a bit. I don't know, but like Shamil Gaziev is a lot better than Valter Walker in my opinion. Like that's kind of what I'm like I think that, you know, I know Shamil gets a lot of crap for the Rosenstruik fight and all that, but you know, he's a good fighter. Like I know it's kind of become a joke now that he's like the guy that John Jones is avoiding and all that, right? But in general, like I think, you know, he's someone that has some promise. Walker, I'm just not seeing it. Maybe this is the fight he does it, and I'm totally wrong, but I don't know. I just like I have not been that impressed with him. So
I agree. It just I think it's a bet on upside. You know what I mean? Because you look back at his regional stuff, and I know he didn't fight anybody. He fought a bunch of regional bums with bad records and stuff like that. But you know, his last fight before he got the call up to the UFC was a round 4 TKO in a title fight that like. He was able to go deep. You know, he's got
Alex
ground
Nicholson,
pound TKOs.
Though, a former middleweight in the UFC.
Oh, I
remember this?
Yeah. I know. I talked about that when he made his debut. It's the most padded record you'll ever see. But it's just the fact that he's massive and he's 27 and he's a good grappler. Like that's it. He's a good grappler. He won't be massive here.
Let's be clear about that though, because again, Mays is the same height as him. Like he might be a bit stronger, but I don't know. Dontel Mays. I mean, this is a guy that you know trained with John Jones for years. Like he's got to have some sort of strength. But we'll see. Yeah. Again, I'm with you where. The IQ thing's a little bit of a worry and just the performance, right? Like you just think he's going to break through one of these fights. I thought the same thing after Arlovsky and then it just didn't happen. So yeah.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm struggling. Now, when those spread bets drop, guys, when the spreads drop on DraftKings, with Mays being a plus 185 favorite, you might get even money on like the plus 3.5 on DraftKings. You might get plus money or maybe a minus 110. And with those spread bets, if you guys have access to those, it's a judges scorecard situation where you add 3 to the tally of the judges. So if he loses a 29-28 split decision, you'll whiff on that money line, but that plus 3.5 spread might cash. So that might be the way to go, James, is if you've got access to the spread, maybe play one of those with Dontel Mays, because I'm with you. I think this fight goes over, and I think it's close.
There we go. Talk way too much about Dontel Mays, by the way.
Oh my Lord, I know. James, I call him Don't Tail Mays because you just don't want to put your money on that guy. All right. Vince Morales and Elijah Smith. A much more exciting fight, in my opinion, here for this one. I have been a V for Vendetta fan for a long, long time. Vince Morales is my guy, James. You know, I always love these underdog stories, right? These mangy guys that are barely hanging on to UFC roster spots where I can see those bright, shiny, brilliant moments where I think they can be more. Those are always the guys that I'm rooting for. And Vince went through just the absolute ringer in his first UFC run, man. He got a big win over Luis Smolka while he was there, but like Chris Gutierrez, Jonathan Martinez, Miles Johns. I mean, like I felt like he got a really rough run and then they cut him. He went 2-3. So like, it's not like he went 0-3 or 0-4 and they got rid of him. He was competitive in all of those fights against tough opposition, and they still let him go. He goes out on the regional scene and really shows out. Now, he's not fighting anybody that's really all that good, but you can still see the improvements. He's getting more aggressive with his hands. He's putting his power to work instead of, point striking as much. He's really worked on his grappling. But, before he got back to the UFC, his last 2 wins were both by submission, so you can see the improvements in his ground game there. Of course, he gets back to the UFC and they throw him straight to Taylor Lapilus. I was so mad, James, because I was like, I've been waiting for the reinvention of Vince Morales. I've been waiting for people to underestimate him and for him to come back and make me some serious coin because he's going to shock people, turn heads how good he is coming back. And they give him freaking Taylor Lapilus. I was like, dang it, he's dead. Like, I knew you just knew. Taylor Lapilus is so good. You knew he was in trouble in that fight. But I love the well-rounded skill set of Vince Morales. I love the boxing, the toughness, the heart. He's my kind of guy. He's taking on Elijah Smith, 7-1 prospect, 22-year-old kid who's making his debut off of the Contender Series. And we have seen this story a couple times before already, James. You have got this kid who everybody is just absolutely could not be higher on. He's got a wrestling background. He is very, very light on his feet. He is very athletic. He is very quick. He changes up his game, mixes in those level changes, the takedowns. He is smooth. He's a minus 240 favorite here. Vince Morales plus 195, the underdog. And if I were holding to the Dana White's Contender Series blind bet fade angle, it would apply here. This would be the spot where you just don't think twice. You click the button. You take the guy with way more experience and you pull that trigger. The problem for me, though, I really am impressed with this kid. Elijah Smith is very, very good. He's also fought decent level of opposition, before he made it to the UFC, as opposed to some of the insanely padded records you've seen before. He's beaten some okay people. I think this is going to be a fight, man. The sneaky move here is going to be Vince Morales via submission with those front chokes. Because like I said, Peruvian necktie over Hunter Azure, the Darce over Luis Guerrero. Like, he's really hunting those submission finishes and fighting somebody who might fall back on what's natural. If he gets tagged on the feet or if he's struggling in the fight, shooting some desperation takedowns, that sub opportunity could be there in this fight more than maybe some of the others that Vince Morales is going to find him in. But I actually think this ends up being a bit of an over, a lesson learned type of situation for Elijah Smith. Whether or not he wins what should be a close competitive decision, that's up in the air to me. I think I'll pick Elijah Smith to win. Again, I don't have the balls to outright pick Vince Morales here in this spot. And part of this, you guys, is I'm a fan. I'm rooting for him. My heart is with him. So I don't want to put my money on him just because I'm a fan of his, because I'm really rooting for the guy, James. I want him to go ahead and get this win. Dog or pass betting perspective, but I can't pull the trigger. I'll say Elijah wins.
Yeah, I don't want to bore your audience. I completely agree with what you said. This is another fight where I think the odds are off a little bit. Smith's 22. Like, we forget how young he is, right? So while there is a lot of promise and potential there, you got a guy in Vince Morales, and one of the wins you didn't mention in his first UFC stint, which is aged gracefully, is Ayman Zahabi. He's one of the few guys to beat Ayman Zahabi in the UFC too, and you see what Zahabi's done since then, obviously reinventing himself and going on quite the run. Vince has fought far better opposition. I'm big on the opposition, right? You talk about those losses. Jonathan Martinez, Chris Gutierrez, these are fighters that were ranked or, was ranked at a point or are ranked now. I have to go look at the rankings right now, but I mean, that's some good opposition. And the Taylor Lapilus fight, you're fighting him in Paris on short notice. Like, that's a tough ask for anyone. It was one of those things where his manager's probably like, look, they want to bring you back, but you got to do him a solid. It's pretty tough to beat Taylor Lapilus, who's been on quite the roll himself. I interviewed both these guys before this fight. You can find it on my channel, youtube.com/Lynch on Sports. And these two are actually pretty familiar with each other because they trained a little bit together at Syndicate MMA a couple years back. They also have the same management too. So I don't know if there's some, there's a little bit of familiarity there too with both of those fighters. But I think this is a case as well where I think the line's a little high for Elijah Smith, like minus 230 for a guy that's just making his UFC debut. And I'm with you. He looked great on Contender Series, beat a really tough Aussie fighter in Tao. That was a good win. Got the decision though, didn't finish him. Did finish his previous opponents here in Josh Walker, and the other guy he fought who was 1-2 finished him as well. But again, if you look at Vince Morales in general, he's a tough guy to take out. The last time he was finished in a fight was the Chris Gutierrez fight, and that was just, remember that fight where he just kept kicking leg kicks, and Chris Gutierrez is known for that, right? So I don't know a lot of fighters that would sort of survive that. So kind of what I'm getting at is he's very durable, right? So I don't know if it's going to be like, unless Vince is not having an off night or whatever, I think this is another fight that could potentially go the distance. So this is again where I kind of look at the over, maybe look at the fight goes the distance just in case. I think Smith takes this one. He's a little bit younger, like I said, a little bit more potential there. But you're fighting a guy that in Vince Morales who's seen it all. He's been in there with literally everyone. He's one of the few fighters who's, left the UFC, came back. He fought in Risen. He's been all over the world. This guy's been in there with some of the best. So that's something I have to account in analyzing this fight. And so I think it's going to be one of those. This is how I kind of think it'll play out. I think Elijah Smith will look good. He won't look like a minus 230 favorite. He'll look more like a minus 150, minus 125. He'll edge it out. Vince Morales will show a lot of heart. People will be like, man, that was a great fight, but he didn't get it done. That's how I see it happening. Elijah Smith decision.
I'm with you. I'm completely with you. And then one thing we forgot to mention, you go back to the beginning of Vince Morales' run in the UFC, man. He went a full 15 with Song Yadong. Fought very competitively.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about, though. He's been in there with some really good opposition. Yeah.
He fought very well with some very good guys. And yeah, even the Taylor Lapilus fight. The only issue for me really was that he can be a little low volume, James. That's kind of always been the thing that he falls back on, is that he tends to kind of take pictures. He watches his handiwork, and he doesn't pull the trigger quite as much as he needs to. But in a fight against a kid like this, that still might be enough. You know, he still might be able to do enough in that spot to get it done. The worry for me, 65% takedown defense rating. If Elijah is as good with his grappling base as, you know, they claim he is on the Dana White's Contender Series fight that he was on, that's really kind of the path to victory here. If he gives up 2-3 takedowns in this fight, it's going to be real tough for him to go ahead and get his hand raised. Now, if it takes place primarily standing, I actually think Vince Morales makes this fight look a little bit closer. He might even look favorite hindsight if they're striking the entire time. It's just the youth, the speed, the athleticism, potentially a big grappling edge. Yeah, I can't quite do it, man. I'm going to root for Vince. I hope he gets it done. Maybe we'll look at jumping in live if Elijah looks like he's kind of flailing like some of these 22-year-old kids do. Look at Prado last week. He put up a great fight. It wasn't enough. He got outclassed. Yeah. It was the experience, and that could happen here very easily.
Yeah. And also, we forgot to mention he's the son of Gilbert Smith, not Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is Brazilian. Gilbert Smith, you remember his dad? He fought in the UFC.
Yeah.
So,
it's funny actually,
again,
because
that's
when you
a
said
good
Gilbert Burns, I was
have.
like, whoa.
Yeah. No, not Gilbert Burns. No, Gilbert Smith. I got my Gilberts mixed up, but
yeah. Gilbert Smith going old school for that one. So yeah, he's got this is one of the first legacy fighters we've ever had in the UFC, right? Like, how many people are we going to see moving forward now where we actually know the name of their parent? It's like football where you've got, you know, the Manning clan and stuff like that. It's crazy. We're getting legacy MMA fighters at this point. Good stuff. All right, guys, next fight up, we've got Julia Avila, the Raging Panda. She takes on Jacqueline Cavalcanti, the Nightmare herself. And we are no stranger on this show, James, to my girl, Jacqueline Cavalcanti. I love this girl. I've been so high on her recently, and she has given me fits. She has made me sweat. I've lost years of my life on my bets because the last two fights have both gone to split decision, James. Now, let us be clear, all right? Let us be clear. These fights should not have gone to split decision. It's insane that both of these fights were landslides, getting worked. Cavalcanti was never in danger in any moment. She was in control of both of these fights for the entire duration. And there were rogue 30-27s in both of them. Somebody scored Josiane Nunez in that fight when she got her ass beat for 15 minutes. Some French home cooking judge scored 30-27 for Nora Cornol when everybody in the stadium knew she got her ass kicked. They have tried to rob my girl, Jacqueline Cavalcanti, in both of these fights. And it kind of sucks because it makes you think of her like Sean Strickland almost, James, where it's just like, she doesn't do enough in the fight to put a stamp on it. You know, we all know that she won, but it's so nonchalant. There's no moment where you're like, ooh, 10-8, like she destroyed her that round. There's no threat of a finish. She just kind of works her way methodically for a 15-minute decision win, and she's very talented. She's very skilled. She's quick. She's light on her feet. She's fast. Her striking is crisp and clean. She's very defensive. She's very defensively sound, and that's one of my favorite things about her. But they are trying to rob her, James, and that scares me because if you get her into a dogfight, you know, she may end up dropping a fight that she shouldn't just because of the way she fights. Now, she's taken on Julia Avila, who's 9-3 and blew me away, 36 years old. I thought she was younger than that, James. I really thought Julia was younger than that. I used to really like Julia Avila as a prospect, but man, I went back and had to kind of take a look at this and woof. Like, she fought Piani Kenzad in 2019. She fought Gina Mazzani in 2020. And that's where I really wanted to kind of get excited about her. She drops a fight to Sijara Eubanks. You guys, this resume has aged so poorly. Like, beating Gina Mazzani is nothing to write home about. Losing to Sijara Eubanks, that's a problem. And she did go ahead and get out there and get the win over Julija Stoliarenko. We all know Stoliarenko is a round one armbar or bust type of fighter. So again, nothing to really write home about. And Miesha Tate ran through her. Now, we made bank, James, on that Miesha Tate fight because that was the new mom fade. They gave me damn near even money on Miesha Tate in this spot that was just set up for her on a silver platter with Julia Avila trying to come back for the first time after having her child, which women doing that in that position, it's just a terrible win rate. Your first fight back after having a baby, it doesn't tend to go well. And then, I'm not trying to be sexist or anything. We're trying to make money here. It's
Don't
a
need
fact.
to worry about that with me here. It's all good. I know what you meant, so it's fine.
No, I'm just, for anybody who,
Yeah.
runs this back, I don't want someone to try to clip it and make me look bad. It's a fact. It's a thing. Like they go through so much in that process. Their bodies can't adjust in 9 months to come back and then be a killing machine again. It takes longer than that. So usually you look to get on somebody their second fight back, their third fight back, that kind of thing. But then Julia goes out for another long layoff. She's been gone for 2 years again. And this time she had her knee torn apart. Like she's talking about being the bionic woman coming back on this one and stuff. And I got to tell you guys, I am 37 years old and I'm in the worst shape of my life because I've been doing so much work, all this extra content, grinding on this podcast. I used to be an athlete, James. I really did. But I haven't exercised and I haven't run and I haven't operated as much as I've needed to keep that at this age. Trying to turn that around in 2025. Going to make that a priority for myself here in 2025. But I now know what it's like to try to come back from not having it. Like to go from I am bulletproof. I can run as hard as I want, as long as I want. I can take a punch to the face. I can jump guillotine and have no problems working my way back up and then getting back on top and dominating the rest of the fight because I got gas for days. I've gone from that to where I'm at now, where you get a little tired up a flight of stairs. Like, so I know what it feels like to look back on that. It's not easy, guys. If I've got one piece of advice for any of you younger guys out there, don't get out of shape. It's very important. Just stay in shape. Just do enough to stay in shape. But Julia Avila is now going to, for the second time, have to build her way back up. She went from being a UFC fighter with legitimate power, a threat everywhere, a grappling threat, a striking threat, power, all of it. She had to hit the reset button after her child and come back and got her ass whooped against Miesha Tate. Now she has to hit the reset button again after having her knee destroyed and come back and do it again against Jacqueline Cavalcanti. I don't know if she can do it again, James. Like, I don't want to be the guy putting bad vibes out there, but I lost a bet very recently on Jamal Hill. And when I made that bet, shout out my guy Dan Levy. He talked about this on his show last week. When we made the bet on Jamal Hill, it was a surprise when he came out rocking double knee braces. Like, that's not what you're looking to put your money on. When your fighter comes out with not one but 2 knee braces on and is a whole hell of a lot slower than he looked on tape, that's not what I'm trying to bet on. Julia Avila might come out with double knee braces this week, guys. She's 36 years old, second climbing the mountain comeback in this spot. I can't make an argument for her here. Jacqueline is a minus 440 favorite, James, and she was in this territory against Nunez, and I used her as an anchor piece. I haven't done my anchor parlays in a while, but I used her as an anchor, parlayed her to everything. We had a good night. The split decision gave me a heart attack, but we got it done. And I wanted to bet her in this spot too, just because of the mountain that Julia has to climb here, but I can't. Seeing that she's been in back-to-back split decisions where somebody has straight up tried to take that fight from her with how good Julia Avila used to be, minus 440 ain't the price tag. I'm picking Jacqueline to get the win. I think she's going to do what she needs to do, but it's probably going to be another decision. And unless Avila's complete dust, maybe she's just completely broken and Jacqueline finds her way to her first UFC finish here. I don't know. But I got to pick Jacqueline to win. I can't get to minus 440, though.
Well, it's good to hear because I feel like last week you kind of did that with Jubilee where the odds were very big on one side and you're like, well, there's value. And so, because this does look like a value spot here for Avila, right? Like plus
who's going to tell him I ended up sprinkling Jubilee and losing on it?
Well, yeah. That's what I mean. Like I'm just saying, like this seems like a spot that you would bet. So that's good to hear because we're talking about you getting back on the winning track. This is a perfect example of that. So I'm also with Jacqueline Cavalcanti on this fight. I interviewed Julia. I'm guessing that's the interview you referenced, unless you saw a different interview. But I spoke to her. And yeah, exactly. Went into detail about the ACL injury. The key thing in that interview that stood out to me, though, was I asked her about, I always ask fighters this. By the way, people get mad at me for asking these types of questions, but there's a reason because I get an answer like this. So I asked her, was this the right amount of time off in between, coming back from your injury and all that? And she's like, you know what? It was a little bit rushed, but I just pushed through it. That's a key thing there, right? So that's something to kind of keep in mind. I know people are like, well, of course they're going to say they're ready to come back, but she was honest with me. So that's
I need
something
flags,
where,
James. I need like a big red flag that I.
With that said, though, I think you're being a little hard on her in the last fight because you lost to Miesha freaking Tate. Like Miesha Tate, I know she had the retirement and all that stuff. She's still Miesha Tate. She still won a UFC title. Like Jacqueline Cavalcanti has not fought anyone like that. Even at Miesha's age and everything, Miesha's still an accomplished fighter. So that's one thing that, yeah, she didn't look great in that, but she also hurt herself in that fight and wasn't able to do a whole lot against Miesha Tate. So that's important to note, just because, you know, if you're just looking at the box score, you're going, wow, that was a terrible performance. But there were a few things that contributed to that loss as well. Yeah, I just think this is just a fight I'm going to avoid. Like, I don't even think it's worth it to bet Jacqueline at this much. Like, she looks like she's on the rise. And again, there's a lot to like about, you know, her last couple wins, but it's not really like she's blowing the world on fire either, like in terms of, you know, finishing opponents or having like dominant wins. So this is one where, yeah, I'm just going to sit back. I'll take Jacqueline. I'm leaning with you there with decision, but like I think you have seen glimpses of Avila potentially, you know, beating an opponent like this, but like you said, older, mom, ACL injury, overcoming mental, all that. Like, it's tough. Like, you can watch the interview I did with her, and I appreciate her honesty, but yeah, like, it kind of, the sense to me is like, she just wants to prove it to herself, but you actually have to go out there and do that. And I think that's a tall task after everything's kind of stacked against her is what I'm trying to say.
Yep. And I will tell you guys, this is exactly why James is my absolute favorite interviewer in the business. Now, we've got a couple of people that come on this show that do fighter interviews and stuff like that. I love and respect each and every one of them. But James sometimes asks the questions that we need to hear. And not everybody does, which is why I absolutely respect the crap out of you and what you do. And you're in a different tier in my mind. You are number one of one, man. Love your work, love what you do, and especially for us gamblers, like that's the kind of hidden nugget that most people wouldn't grind out. So everybody make sure you're subscribed to his content and go check those interviews out because you will find
the
those
checks in the mail.
Gems.
And you got to start exercising every day. You and I will talk after this because I'm older than you, Clint, and I exercise every day. And it's something you have to make a point of doing. I got 2 kids. I coach soccer. I'm involved with ice hockey. Like, I got a lot going on, but I still make time to exercise. So you got to make it a priority, man, because your health is wealth. You can make all the content you want, but if your health isn't good, you're not going to be able to do anything, right? So just
I completely agree, man. I let it slip for way too long, and you guys can't see it, but I have a bike right over there now. So brand new, like Peloton style bike. Like I'm going to start riding. I'm going to get out there and start moving.
Do it after the show. Just get on there, tell the wife to make dinner a little bit later, get on the bike, but strength training, man, that's what you got to be doing. Cause it's mobility at our age, not to go off on a tangent. This is a betting show, but strength training is the way to go, man. I'm telling you, you got to lift a couple times a week and you'll be better. I'm not a Greek god, but I'm just surviving here, Clint. That's basically what I'm trying to do. So
you're in good shape though, James. The people can tell looking at you, like, and that's the thing though. That's the thing. I need that back. Like I've got the right frame for it. I've got the right build for it. It'll come back. It'll be like riding a bike. You know what I mean?
How tall are you, by the way? I was trying to remember that.
You know, I'm like right flat on 6 foot. I'm pretty tall.
Oh, okay. We're the same height then. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay, cool. So you're speaking to me here, so we'll talk after. But anyways, yeah, we'll move along here. This is not the life podcast. That's a different episode we'll do. So, you know,
before James, I was trying to come up with something to do actually with that, because like I do a lot of like shot bets. You know what I mean? It's like if someone disagrees with me in the chat, we'll put a shot on it, right? Like win or lose or for the fight. And I'm like, I got to find a way to make it like a physical activity. I got to come up with like an exercise punishment for when I get something wrong. So like, you know, for me putting my money on Anshul Jubilee and losing, like I should have to run a mile, or like, you know what I mean? Like I should have to do 50 push-ups.
Those are tough. I hate doing those things.
Yeah, exactly. I need to come up with like a legit, you guys should help me after the live stream is over. Get in the chat section, get in the comment section. So I've got it typed out where I can read back to it later. We've got to come up with a punishment system like that. So yeah, I'm already losing money, right? But like we've got to come up with a punishment system for when I get something wrong and I have to do some kind of exercise for it. That'll keep me straight, and then I'll have to answer to you guys here live on the pod every single month.
There we go. Make it happen.
Paul with the wise wisdom here, stop drinking too. And you know what, Paul? I actually drink very casually these days. I don't know if you guys have noticed. I haven't done nearly as many, like, I haven't been winning. So there haven't been nearly as many celebratory shots on Saturday nights on my celebration videos because I haven't had many celebrations.
You should replace it with ginger shots, because that also sucks to drink, but at least it's healthy for you. Ginger shots, look into it. They sell them at Costco in the US. I know this because I go down to the Costco in Washington State and they sell them there. So if you get the ginger shots, have them instead of the fireball, you'll be a lot healthier. Just saying.
Oh God, I don't know if I can go that far, James. I hate those things.
You can have fireball, but ginger shots is where we're crossing the line here.
Exactly, that's the line. I'm tapping out at ginger.
Yeah.
All right. We'll get back on the rails here for you guys.
For sure. Yeah.
Next fight up, you've got Rodolfo Vieira, the black belt hunter himself, and he's taking on Andre Petroski. Grappler's delight, James. I love this fight. I love this fight so much. This is real easy for me. As far as you guys know, I love me some Rodolfo Vieira. I bet against him in his last fight, and that was a massive, massive mistake. You know, I've kind of overestimated the get-up ability of Armen Petrosian. I knew he was going to get taken down, right? I knew he was going to get taken down, but I thought he'd be able to get back up, and that's where the fight got interesting. He never got back up. Rodolfo did exactly what he needed to do, got on top of him, climbed him like a tree. And I mean, it climbed him more like a boa constrictor than a tree, just kept his legs laced the entire time. It was beautiful. Every single move he made. As a jiu-jitsu guy, you know, a guy who literally trained jiu-jitsu, I watch that fight for fun sometimes, James, just because the way he did it, it was just methodical. He just slowly worked up his body, controlling every single position. There was never an opportunity to escape for Armen Petrosian, and then he got tapped out. Love Rodolfo Vieira. Love the way he addresses the ground game. Andre Petroski, 33 years old, and one of my favorite punching bags. You know, I look to fade this guy, James. I really do, and he's had some success, so it hasn't gone, you know, all too well for me, but I found an opportunity to actually bet on him, and heavily. The Josh Fremd fight was just a gift. Everybody and their mother was piling in on Josh Fremd, and I cashed a beautiful dog of the night ticket on Andre Petroski that night. But I'm still not sold on the guy. Like, we've seen time and time again that his cardio is very, very sketchy. His striking is pretty sloppy. His power, it's not great. And while sometimes he'll catch that big, you know, that second wind in the third round and stay alive in a fight like he needed to against Josh Fremd, when he fights somebody who's decent and he gets pushed, he usually ends up getting finished. Now, Michel Pereira, that's not a bad fight. But guys, he got knocked out by the hip of Jacob Malkoun. Like, you cannot forget that. That one of the freakish, flukiest things we've ever seen in MMA. James, I will never get tired of MMA, because seriously, we see something new every single weekend. You think this sport can't figure out a new way to be weird, and it does every single weekend. This guy got popped by a hip, and it knocked him out cold. He lost his equilibrium, fell to the ground. It was over. I think Rodolfo Vieira is going to knock Andre Petroski out, James. You go back, rewatch his fight with like Dustin Stolfus, where he decided to go out there and test his striking instead of testing his grappling. Rewatch the Chris Curtis fight, where he actually was popping Curtis with a power jab at times. I mean, like, the submission is always in his back pocket. He's the better grappler. He's probably going to be physically stronger than Petroski. They call him the black belt hunter for a reason. There's guys that are black belts that they're just not on the level of this guy. I think Vieira is going to win the fight straight up, but I actually think he might look to use his hands for the first time in a long time. And I think he might be able to knock out a chinny and tired Andre Petroski if he doesn't find his way to the sub earlier, because that's kind of the one thing is I could see Petroski just kind of refusing to give up the submission, right? Just kind of a point of pride, jiu-jitsu versus jiu-jitsu. He may not want to go out that way. So Vieira might have to resort to using his right hand. I like Vieira in this spot, man. I think he's better. I can't say better everywhere, because Petroski probably is the better striker of the two, but I like his physicality better. Obviously, he's the higher level grappler on paper, and I think also in practice. I like Rodolfo Vieira in this spot. What about you?
I do as well, but you're not betting him by knockout, are you?
It'll depend on the number. Let's see what the number is.
He doesn't have a knockout win in the UFC. I don't think it's that's not in my opinion. See, this is where I think sometimes you lose like spots here. Like it's a cool bet, and if it hits, you're the man. And the video, the whole thing, I'm with you there. But this is one of those ones where, like, dude, this is a prime fight that you don't bet, in my opinion. You've got again, Ronaldo Vieira. Remember that fight with Anthony Hernandez? I'll never forget that, where it's like, he's going to submit him in the first round, and Hernandez is the one who gets the better of him. The thing you got to look at too with Petroski is look. Okay, Malkoun, I'll give you that. He's not really like a knockout guy. He's got a few knockouts. His other knockout loss was Michel Pereira. That guy's knocking everyone's head to a different planet in the first round. If you can survive the first round, you're obviously a little bit in better shape. But I kind of cut Petroski some slack. Like Pereira is very good. If he's, there's a couple really good first round fighters in the middleweight division. Abus Magomedov's one. Michel Pereira is another one. So yeah, if you don't make it out of the first round, it's probably because you got knocked out by Michel Pereira. But I don't know. I just think that the ground game, I think Petroski does a lot of grappling. He's at that Renzo Gracie team with Sean Brady. Like they got good ground game over there. Like I think he'll be able to figure it out. I don't the last time I think he got submitted was the Brian Battle fight and on the Ultimate Fighter. So that's the last time. Like it's not really common for him. And then as far as him getting knocked out, if he was fighting a guy that has knockouts in the UFC, I'd be more inclined to go that way. But I'm leaning decision here. I think he just, does a little bit more on the feet, maybe get some grappling in there, is a little bit more active. Like, trust me, some of the losses that Petroski's had, I just shake my head at, and it's like, I don't know how that happens, but I think, again, this is not, I don't think Vieira is exactly, lighting the world on fire either. So this is a total pass for me from a betting perspective. Gun to my head, I got to pick because we're doing a betting show. I'm going to go with Vieira as the pick, but yeah, don't bet the knockout prop. I think it's cool that you found that angle and put a tiny bit on it, but this is the type of stuff that adds up at the end of the night for you. And I think this is a prime example of this is not the guy to do it. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, you're probably right.
And I mean
James,
this with love, by the way. I'm not trying to be a jerk. If anyone thinks that,
no,
Clint and I know each other well, so we're doing this as more like a fun banter, just so people
absolutely know. No, better than that. I'm not going to ever take anything like that personally. And frankly, you're speaking the language of 90% of the chat. They all want to say that to me in person too. So you're a man of the people right now. But no, this is one of those ones where I guess I will say if you're going to bet something like a finish here, take inside the distance.
Yes, there we go. That's a good play. Yeah, because
Rodolfo Vieira by sub is the obvious look, right? Black belt Hunter getting another black belt in what should be a grappling fight. I'm just saying the KO is live here. If the KO is 20-1, maybe I sprinkle. Maybe I sprinkle because at 20-1, that's crazy. Now I'm not going to play it if it's like 9-1 because, like you said, Rodolfo doesn't have any knockouts. It's all going to be price dependent.
So when you say sprinkle, when you say sprinkle, when you get an ice cream sundae or something and you put sprinkles on it, I'm talking one sprinkle from that ice cream, not the whole thing of the sprinkles. Okay, one little sprinkle, 0.5 units, $5 or something. That's fine, but don't let it affect your overall thing because I just again, we're talking about a guy who doesn't have a single knockout win in the UFC. That's all I'm saying.
I like that. Just the one sprinkle. We're gonna have to rate our sprinkles from now on.
Do you pick your favorite color? If it's green or something, you grab the green out of there. That's the one you're gonna do. Okay. So there we go.
I love it. All right, guys. Real quick, let's take a break here from some of the sponsors here. As you guys know, Spectation Sports is running the regional scene these days. Mecca is coming up. They've got AFP right around the corner. They're putting together between 40 and 45 events every single year now. They're getting new organizations under the belt. You guys are going to want to watch these fights. You're going to want access to the library so you can research for when Dana White's Contender Series comes back around because a lot of those prospects are coming off of these shows. Promo code DIEHARD will get you a 20% discount when you sign up at Spectation Sports. All the MMA action you can handle. Get in here. Come check it out. I do want to shout out the guys over at fightnumbers.com. If you guys are doing anything as far as DFS goes, they've got tools, they've got calculators, they've got awesome stuff that can really help take your game to the next level. And on top of that, they're adding actual MMA trends to their pages, you guys. This is really, really cool. Nobody else is really working hard as far as trends goes and tracking these things. Fight Numbers are. So shout out John Kelly and the boys over at Fight Numbers. I'm going to have to send him an email because I looked through this whole list and lesbian with neck tattoos is not on the trends list. So we're going to need to get that database updated, my boy John. Last but certainly not least, you guys, Bet Openly, our sponsor, peer-to-peer. We gave away $100 just last week. We did a contest. So if you guys are looking to play some free contests to try to win some money to test out the platform, make sure you get signed up. I promise you guys, if you get signed up, you're going to fall in love with the platform the way that I have been. Our guy Gino takes feedback extremely well. You can tweet him, you can find him on Instagram, and this site is being updated every single week with feedback from the gamblers. So not only is he saving us money, but he's making the tool more powerful for us. And it's one of the very few places in the world, you guys. Well, I guess they haven't updated them yet. I can't show you that just yet. But this instant DFS player prop bet tab here, instead of going peer-to-peer and having somebody else accepting your bet, you can come here and you find overs and unders for players and things of that nature. They've got baskets, first baskets, etc. It does look like this, but with MMA fights, they actually have significant strikes, overs, and unders, you guys. So if you don't have access to those markets elsewhere, they've got them here on Bet Openly. It's just one more tool for us to use. Very, very powerful for mixed martial arts. And as a whole, we have saved damn near $10 million for bettors since the service went live, and it's just getting bigger. It's just growing faster. Join the revolution. Get signed up. Use that link in the description below. And it's still on the table, you guys. When we get to 100 signups, I will wax my chest, and I'll do it on camera for you guys. We are not there yet, but I'll leave the door open. I'll leave the door open. If you guys can get me to 100 signups, we'll go ahead and get that done. But if you do want to do any of those contests or anything like that, you better be signed up for it anyway, so you might as well. Get on there, deposit $50, check it out, give it a try. You guys won't go back. All right, back at it here. Next up, we've got Edmen Shahbazyan taking on Dylan Budka. And the thing that stood out most to me about this fight, James, is we have both Hulks on this card. We've got the clean Hulk and we have the mindless Hulk on the same. How is Ion Cutelaba not co-main eventing this card? They missed the opportunity to have all three Hulks on the same card. Dana White, Hunter, what is wrong with you guys? Get it together. Edmen Shahbazyan, James, once again, is a huge favorite. I'll just lead with that. He's a minus 355 favorite in this spot. And guys, I'm so tired. Edmen Shahbazyan was supposed to be the golden boy. He was supposed to be a champion. He was supposed to be the next big thing. The UFC rushed him. They're desperate for stars. They've been desperate for stars. And they took him up the chain way too fast. And now they're backpedaling in a hurry. Dude went on a 3-fight skid. And now he's alternating wins and losses like everybody else. James, I'm worried about his head. Not durability-wise, not concussions. I'm worried about his confidence. Like, I'm really worried that they have ruined what Edmen Shahbazyan could have been forever because of the run they put him through. It's obvious he has no cardio. Dude is a complete gas bag. He's got next-level death touch on the feet. When he kicks people in the head, they go to sleep. But it seems like people have kind of figured that out now. And if you extend him even just a little bit, he's done, and he quits on himself. And you can see him break every single fight he's in. You know, the Gerald Meerschaert fight, I picked him to win, but I told you guys, I said, be ready. Because if he doesn't kill Gerald Meerschaert in his first opportunity, he has a tendency to gas himself out trying. And that's exactly what happened. He tried to get Gerald Meerschaert out of there early. He had a big moment to do so. And when he ran out of gas in round 2 trying to get that finish, Gerald immediately flipped the script on him and choked him out. I was in Vegas that night. I couldn't get the live bet in, James. I was very, very sad because I called it. And then we went to Vegas and I didn't have access to my books that could do live betting and all that kind of stuff. So I missed that number when Gerald was 8-1. Right after he got dropped, there was a moment where Edmen was laying on top of him in full guard and both guys were just kind of trying to gather their senses. That was the moment. You could get 8-1 on Gerald, and that number moved in a hurry, and Edmen didn't last another minute. The fight was over shortly thereafter. Now, Dylan Budka, 7-4, 25 years old, very, very young fighter here. He's had a rough start to his UFC career. 0-2. In his first 2 UFC fights after a pretty decent win on Dana White's Contender Series. Dude is a good grappler. You know, it's funny because both the Hulks, they kind of remind me of each other here. He's kind of a bit like Valter Walker. I'm not sure what I'm getting out of him. I actually bet him against Andre Petroski in his last fight. Again, trying to fade Andre Petroski. It's a thing I do. I took a shot on Dylan Budka that night because I thought the grappling might cancel each other out. And if the grappling cancels each other out, I'm fading the chin of Andre Petroski. That was the angle. That was the thought. Didn't work out that way. Budka got absolutely washed. Andre Petroski took him down without a second thought and just mauled him the entire night. Now, 25 years old, I could expect someone like Dylan Budka to be getting better. The problem is, I don't even know if he's training with anybody, James. Like, you look at some of the guys on his Instagram, and he's not going to one of the major gyms. He's not training with anybody that's super well known, that it's like, man, if they were going to like really tap into this kid that's got some talent, it seems, that's got some grappling upside, that's got some submission ability, he kind of needs to go somewhere. He needs someone to take him under his wing. He needs to be shown the ropes. He needs time to improve. And I'm just not sure he's going that route. So he may end up floating and being one of these guys that made it to the UFC and just goes 0-3 and gets kind of peaced out. Thanks for coming, kid. Appreciate the try. And we never hear from him ever again. This fight is a nut up or shut up for both guys, James, because Edmen is very clearly the blue chip here. He's the one the UFC wants to win, but they can't lower the bar anymore, right? Like every time he's been in a bad way, they gave him the lowest person they could. Dalchalungi and Bula, AJ Dobson, and he gets back on track with big round one finishes in those fights. This is the one where Dylan is in the exact same situation. It's like, hey, both you guys are young. At this point, we don't care. Whoever wins, you know what I mean? I think that jobs could be on the line in this fight. Even though Edmen is only 27 years old, he may be the most broken prospect we've ever seen. If Dylan survives the early onslaught in this fight, James, I would not be shocked at all if he comes back to win a decision by grinding for the next 2 rounds. And with how bad Edmen gas is, I wouldn't even be surprised if Dylan finishes him late in this fight. It's another one where, like the rest of this card, the numbers just make me cringe because Edmen should win this fight. Edmen probably wins via thunderous head kick in round 1. But if he doesn't, that minus 350 is going to feel gross. Watch this one for live betting, guys. I'm going to pick Edmen to win. I'm going to say he gets the KO. I'm not doing anything with this pre-flop, though, James.
Yeah, I'm going Edmen too. I want to point out I took Gerald Meerschaert against Edmen in the last fight because I didn't think Edmen would get to finish him early. I know Gerald's a guy that guy, he has been finished early before, but yeah, I've just been I don't know. I think like there's certain fighters where you can pick your spots with Edmen, and I just didn't think that was one of them. Also, I want to kind of back up a little bit on something you said just quickly about him like kind of getting a step up too much. Like, remember he fought, what was it? The first fight that he lost, I think was Brunson, right? That was a couple of years back. Remember the fight before that, he head kicked Brad Tavares and knocked him out in the first round. I think Brad Tavares is kind of your like, if you beat him, you're probably pretty good. I think what we realized in the Brunson fight and shortly after that is that he's got issues gassing, and that happened against Hermanson, Imavov. Like he just, if you can't finish you early, it's never going to be, it's never going to really work out too well. So I think he's just, again, if you look at who he fought prior to getting on Contender Series, like again, same thing. It was all padded records. And then I don't know, he kept like winning. And then eventually the ground was going to, fall under him at some point, and it happened to be Brunson. And we've seen that sort of ever since. But anyways, I think he wins here. I think they're doing him a favor. I'm not very high in Budka. I'm just like you. I would look maybe at the, round 1, round 2 prop for Edmen if you want to get a little creative, but nothing too crazy because it's Edmen, right? Like again, he could try and finish him and not, and then lose in the 3rd round, like we've seen so many times. So yeah, I think Edmen should win, but like the second this fight got booked, my first thought was like, oh, they're trying to like give him a rebound fight. That's what I thought. It's nothing against Budka. I just don't think that like going from Gerald Meerschaert, and I realize Gerald's not ranked or anything, but like I think this is a big step down from where he was, like who he was fighting previously. And I think this is kind of a fight where they're doing a favor because Edmen was a big favorite in that last fight too. And that was another reason why I bet Gerald, because I'm like, how is he such a big underdog against a guy that, is known to gas out? Like Gerald's not that easy to finish early. So yeah, I'm going to go Edmen. I might look at some of those round 1, round 2 props, or maybe just take him straight up with a knockout, but Edmen should win by stoppage. That's kind of where I'm leaning.
I'm right there with you. He really should. I mean, at this point, he is the most untrustworthy of all the untrustworthy fighters on the UFC roster. He is training at Extreme Couture for what that means. He's in there being forced to do rounds with Sean Strickland of all people right now. So maybe, that's a good camp. I said this in the last time, James, the last time we broke down his fight. I said that's where I'd want him to be. Like if you could pick a spot, if you're like, hey, I see your archetype, I want you to go here and learn from this guy, I would have picked Extreme Couture. I would have picked Sean Strickland. It's like, that's exactly where I want you to be. So now maybe we start to see the payoff. Now maybe we start to see, after a couple of camps, he's been there a while, he's been training with them, working out, getting on their routine. Maybe now we see, what comes from that. I hope we see a better Edmen Shahbazyan. I hope he turns it around. Maybe this kid can still be exciting. There's still a lot of time, but I just don't trust him. Just can't trust him.
Understandable.
Yeah. All right, guys. Moving right along. Next up, we've got Jose Delgado, and he is taking on Connor Matthews. We've got Dana White's Contender Series on Dana White's Contender Series. Violence in this fight, James. Both these guys coming off the show. There is one major, distinct difference, though. You guys know me and my goofy angles, but the one that really matters, the one that I actually believe in, the one that I'm not making half of a joke about, James, I think 2 times Dana White's Contender Series competitors are trash. Not the ones who are brought back to showcase, not the ones that snag headlines and Dana needs a quote unquote main event for a Dana White's Contender Series card. We're not talking about those guys. We're not talking about the special ones, but the ones who legitimately either outright lose their first fight or they underperform their first fight, and then they have that second opportunity because they got to fill out a card. I don't think those guys are going to make waves in the UFC. Conor Matthews is a two times Dana White's Contender Series fighter. And when he made it to the UFC, we were able to sniff out that opportunity to put some money on Dennis Buzukja, a guy who's been struggling in the UFC, knocked him out. Absolutely cleaned his clock in the third round of that fight. It was a competitive fight. It was back and forth. There was a very obvious speed and athleticism difference, and Conor Matthews eventually went down under the pressure. And that's exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about. You know, Dennis Buzukja is a guy who's really kind of struggled to find his footing in the UFC. He's had a very, very rough run. And he's been 1-3, I think, the only win being Conor Matthews. So that's the guy you're losing to on the big stage. I just don't think Conor Matthews is long for the UFC. He's 32 years old, little too old to be a prospect at this point. This is kind of the finished version of him. You don't see a lot of fighters improving beyond the age of 32. He's got decent power. He's got good boxing. He doesn't move his head at all. So that's part of the problem there. It's kind of a, punch you to punch me and see who falls first type of attitude. And he's just not the guy with the death touch in there more often than not. Jose Delgado, 8-1. He is 26 years old. So a big age gap here. He's training out of the MMA lab, a big gap as far as where you're training and getting your skills from there. And it's his debut off Dana White's Contender Series. He took his Dana White's Contender Series fight on 11 days notice, James. He was like a 3-1 favorite in that spot. And when they did that episode, they came on and they said they were saving him for later in the season. Like outright, when they came on Dana White's Contender Series, they were like, he wasn't supposed to be fighting tonight. We were going to use him later on in the show, which when you get towards the end of Dana White's Contender Series, it's the better prospects. They start with like some of the throwaways early to get it rolling. And then they have some of the big names that you're really excited for at the end of the show. It's supposed to be one of those guys. So that should tell you right there what they think about the difference between these two prospects. Jose Delgado is fast. He starts fast. He gets going very early. He's hard to catch up to. He is very clean with his striking. He switches stances a lot. He manages range really well. He's got nasty head kicks, good takedowns. He'll have a 2-inch reach in this spot, or reach advantage, in this spot. I like the Jose Delgado a lot, James. In fact, I think Jose Delgado is probably my favorite on this card. I want to fade Conor Matthews, A, because I just don't think he's UFC caliber, B, my 2 times appearance angle I want to put in stone, and then C, I just think Delgado is a different level of prospect. I think this kid's a beast, and I think he is somebody who's going to be around in the UFC for a long time. I like Jose Delgado, and I like Delgado by knockout.
I'm 100% with you. I'm usually against these types of situations. Again, Contender Series guy, very built up, but you talk to anyone at the lab, and I interview a lot of fighters from that gym, they just rave about him. They're like, this is the guy, you got to keep an eye on him. And we saw that, like you said, short notice, goes out there, gets a nice finish on the Contender Series. And then Conor Matthews, yeah, you're right. Like, just hasn't really shown it. And then even, regionally did not fight a lot of great competition. He trains at the Cartel, so I'm sure that helps as well as far as like getting him opportunities. He had, good opportunities kind of leading the way up to this, but yeah, I just don't think he has it. And I'm with you 100% with Delgado. I think he gets it done. This is like one of those rare cases where I'm kind of believing the hype here. And I think he goes out there. I'm very confident he gets the win here.
Completely agree with you, man. I'm glad we're on the same page there. And the MMA lab is one of those gyms that you can trust.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's there's a lot of gyms where, we throw the name out there and it's like, they've had mixed results. The lab is one of those places that they are cooking with their prospects right now. So there's a lot to be excited for about this kid, and he's in the right place as well. So yeah, I'm going to be using Jose Delgado in some way, shape, or form this week, you guys. I've never had a UFC debutant be an anchor before, because I don't trust them with that amount of money. I can't trust them to that extent. I considered it. I'm very much considering it with this kid, both because of who he's fighting and because I think he's just a legitimate prospect. Very terrifying to think about maybe doing something like that with someone who is unproven at the UFC level. But thinking about it. All right, guys, we got just a couple of fights left to go. do me a favor again, as usual, please hit that like button and get subscribed if you haven't. I'm joined by James Lynch, interviewer extraordinaire. Please support him as well if you haven't already. The next fight, we've got the other Bonfim brother, Ismael Bonfim. He is taking on Nazim Sadykhov. This is a great fight, James. I believe Ismael, you know what? I was debating which brother I thought was the real brother. You know, we always talk about like A side, B side, right? Like one of the brothers is better than the other. You've got Ilya Topuria and then you've got the other Topuria. Like this one, I actually thought that Gabriel Bonfim was the A side. Maybe he still is. But when he got exposed, it was like, that was a bad look in my opinion. Ismael Bonfim might actually end up being the A side. He also got similarly exposed, but that was against Benoit Saint-Denis. I mean, that was like, okay, like it's not a shame to get rushed up the ladder and lose to my guy BSD. That's not a black mark. That's not a fraud check, right? He comes out, gets right, gets a decision win over Vince from Hell Pichel, which I actually think is a very, very impressive, good, solid win for a guy to get. Vince is tough as nails. He's got serious finishing ability. He is hard. He is impossible to put away. He'll make you fight, scrape, and claw for every inch of the fight, even at 40 years old. So that's a good, solid, bounce back, impressive win to me, in my opinion. Ismael Bonfim might just be the goods. I like everything about the guy. Very well-rounded, nice boxing, good hands, athletic is all get out, flying knee KO over Terrence McKinney. That was a fun night. I was one of the few people who actually bet Bonfim against Terrence McKinney. That was back before people had figured out Terrence McKinney was a glass cannon. So that was a good one for me. He's taking on Nazim Sadykhov in this spot, 9-1 and 1, 30-year-old prospect. He's out of Longo MMA, and I think I've got this guy absolutely nailed, James. Nazim Sadykhov is Matt Frivola with more durability. That's it. Like, that's all you need to know. If you guys have seen Matt Frivola fight, Nazim fights the exact same way. He just is a little bit more durable. He can take a bit more of a punch. He's coming off of a draw with Slava Claus, which, whoo, baby. Being in that kind of a war with Slava, I'm not so sure that's a good thing these days. You know, that's aged pretty poorly. Slava's been figured out by just about everybody, and Nazim went to war with him and almost went out on his shield a couple different times in that fight. Very, very fun fight to watch. Highly entertaining. Nazim is well-rounded. He can wrestle. He can strike. He's explosive. He's got power. This guy is in a fun fight literally every time he's out there. But the fact that he went life and death that way with Slava Claus kind of makes me worried about his ceiling. He might be a little capped compared to what I was expecting early on in his career. I got to go with the Bonfim bro here, James. I think this is Ismael's spot to go ahead and kind of re-announce himself after his last fight, where it was a bit more of a get right, a bit more of a slog. I think this is one where he can make this fight exciting and maybe even get a finish. Ismael's minus 185 over Nazim Sadykhov, who's a plus 155 underdog. I got to side with the favorite. Low confidence because the Bonfim bros still got to prove some stuff here to me, but I think he can win this fight.
I'm on the same side here. One thing I will say, did interview Sadykhov ahead of this one. Bit of a change for this one. He's trained at Syndicate MMA in the past, but majority of his camp there now, training there. So I think that's a good camp move for him. A lot of those New York guys have kind of separated a bit. So, he's getting, gets to work with John Wood, and there's just, a lot of good training going on there. So that's, I think, a plus for him. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, Slava Claus is a fight he should have won. Didn't end up getting it done. I think he'll look better than this fight. Also, he's got a layoff coming into this. He didn't, if I'm not mistaken, he didn't fight last year. So that's another thing that's, a bit of a red flag with Sadykhov as far as him not being as active. That Slava Claus fight was, November of 2023. So that's kind of something.
He needed a layoff after that one.
Yeah, no, he did. He did for sure. But that's kind of a long layoff, right? Like we're talking, more than a year. So, I'm with Bonfim. Still got some question marks about him. Don't know if I'll bet this fight. I'll pick him though here. But yeah, I think it's going to be a potential fight of the night though with both their styles. I think they've certainly got a recipe for that for sure.
I agree. This one's going to be a banger. That fight shouldn't disappoint. Even if it somehow goes the full 15 the way the Slava fight did, it should be fun. Because both those guys really only know one direction, and that's forward. Should be a good one. All right, guys, co-main event of the evening. Calvin Kattar takes on the Moroccan Devil, my boy Youssef Zalal, finding himself in the contender circle already. Whoo, baby. That was fast. James, when Youssef Zalal came back, I was all in. He's one of these guys very, very much like my guy earlier in the evening that we talked about, Vince Morales, that I really loved Youssef Zalal, and he had a tough run that he didn't get enough credit for his first time around in the UFC. Lost to Ilia Topuria, of all people. The decision to Sungwoo Choi, which he puts a fight up there with pretty much everybody. And then what I felt was a bad decision against Sean Woodson. I thought he won that fight. He got dropped, and I was just like, man, that's way too talented of a guy for you to drop. He goes on an incredible run, decides to start finishing people. The UFC call him up and bring him back, and he's on a 3-fight win streak, all 3 by finish since he's been back in the UFC. We have bet him every step of the way. He was an underdog in his first fight with Billy Q. We got in on that. We used him as an anchor against Jarno Aarons. We made bank with him on that. And I think, have a little piece of him against Jack Shore. I was less confident in that spot because I respected Jack Shore a little bit more, and the price tag was getting a little bit out of hand. But we have been good on our boy Youssef Zalal since he's been back, and I really believe that time away has just been phenomenal for him. Kid is well-rounded as it gets. When he was first in the UFC, bit of a point fighter, right? Very defensive, stay on the outside, run away, make sure you can't touch him. And that's really what kind of led to some of his fights, and I think led to him really being cut, as he was kind of boring to watch. But he was an incredible scrambler, great high-level grappler. He has kept that, and he's made it vicious. He's really amped up his ability to finish these fights, and that's what he's been working on. He submits people left and right now. He climbs that back. He sinks in the choke. You do not want to be with this guy in the grappling realm. And his striking has become less of point striking and more vicious, more to create openings, more to expose takedowns. He's gone from, I want to point, fight, and be clean, to using his striking as a vehicle to get the fight where he needs it to be. And then once he gets it where it needs it to be, he does go ahead and finish. Calvin Kattar, 23-8, 36 years old, one of these cartel guys we were talking about. He has fallen on hard times, man. He is 1-4 in his last 5. Incredible striker, high volume, very spectacular on the feet. Another guy very defensively solid, incredible jab, great boxing. That's kind of the hallmark of those New England cartel guys. Very, very durable, hard to finish. He's only been finished twice, once by sub, once by KO. And the one KO was that knee injury against Arnold Allen. So a bit of a fluke. He came back from that injury, and Aljamain Sterling made him look silly. Aljamain Sterling made me look silly. James, I had a big bet on Calvin Kattar in that spot. I did not think that Aljo was going to translate up a weight class as well as he has. I thought this really was kind of the spot where somebody with some takedown defense and some striking was going to make Aljo look foolish up a weight class. Yikes. Aljamain dominated that fight. Complete domination. And it kind of put in my mind the is Calvin Kattar washed conversation, right? Like, that fight was so bad. I don't know if he just wasn't ready for the takedowns. I don't know if Aljo's just that good. I don't know if the layoff coming off the injury, that he just maybe wasn't quite ready to come back yet. I have so many questions right now about where Calvin Kattar is and what he can do coming into this fight, because I really expected more resistance in that fight to the grappling. I expected him to be able to hang more in that fight, and he just couldn't. It wasn't even close. So now in this fight, you've got Youssef Zalal as a massive favorite. He's minus 400 in most places. And I think a lot of that is because he's coming off all these submission victories. People are looking at that last fight with Aljamain Sterling and going, well, of course, Youssef is going to tap out Calvin Kattar then. I don't think it's that simple. Youssef Zalal can't grapple the way Aljo can. He doesn't wrestle the way that Aljo does. He's not built like Aljamain Sterling. You see Aljo and the amount of muscle on that frame. That is not how Youssef Zalal is built. He's more of a whippet. He's skinny. He's long. He's fast. He takes people's backs in transitions. He's quick. Man, this price is wrong, James. Like, I'm picking Youssef Zalal to win this fight. I do think he wins this fight. I'm all team Youssef Zalal 2.0. I'm ride or die with this kid. I think he's a special talent. But I don't think it's going to be nearly as easy as that fight with Aljamain Sterling was, because Calvin Kattar isn't going to have to worry about the wrestling quite as much. There's probably going to be more striking involved in this fight. And while I think Youssef can win that striking match, I think it's going to be very competitive. It's going to be more of that point fighting kickboxing match that we're used to seeing. And then if he does get Calvin Kattar to the ground, the submissions are always there. There's always a chance that he can find his way to a sub. It's definitely possible. He is that good. He is that smooth. I just don't know how many opportunities he's going to get against Calvin Kattar when he can't double leg and dump him the way Aljamain can. So I'll say Youssef Zalal by decision actually here, James. I just really hate this price tag.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I said the exact same thing on my show today. There's no reason why he should be this much of a favorite, with the simple fact that Calvin Kattar's very durable. Max Holloway couldn't finish him in that fight. And granted, his coach should have thrown in the towel in that fight. He was taking an absolute beating. But you look at Kattar's just really durable, man. And again, that submission loss he had, I believe, was, early in his career. I think it was when he fought for Elite XC way back in the day. This was in like 2008 that Kattar got submitted in a fight last. Zalal's been the beneficiary of fighting competition that, is, not in that caliber of where Calvin Kattar is. And a lot of these guys are more vulnerable to getting finished. I'm very high on Youssef Zalal. I was very upset when he got cut the first time. I was really stoked when he came back to the UFC, and he's been on quite the roll, but this is a step up. And, Kattar, he is ranked a bit lower in the division, but he's also one of the toughest guys to take out, like we mentioned there. So I'm with you. I think this fight's going to be way closer. He's not going to look like minus 400. I think he'll edge this out. But I don't think that we're going to see a finish either. So yeah, Zalal by decision is something I'm looking at as well. I'm big on the decisions. This is one that definitely seems like it could work. And yeah, I think unfortunately, with Kattar, the damage, the injuries, the layoffs, all that's caught up to him. Even the old Kattar, yeah, maybe there's a chance of him catching Youssef Zalal, but Zalal's so defensively sound. One other thing I'll mention, did get a chance to speak to Youssef ahead of this one. So one of the things they're doing now at Factory X that I think is newer is they're actually letting their fighters, they're doing some cross training now. So I know Zalal got to work a bit with Justin Gaethje this camp, which is something you'd never hear of, because Factory X is like, one of those gyms that kind of keeps things close knit. But I know that the guys are doing cross training now. I know Corey Sandhagen's been over there too, training with those guys. So I think that's just another way to help him level up a little bit. So yeah, I think Zalal, I think the striking will be okay. I think it'll be enough to potentially get the win here. And I think people forget Zalal started his career as more of a Muay Thai striker guy. So, it's not to the level of Kattar, but I think he'll be able to hold his own is what I'm trying to say. So Youssef Zalal decision is going to be my pick.
I'm glad we're on the same page again here on this one. And thank you very much for that tidbit about him training out there with Gaethje, because that's an excellent training partner for him to be with, especially trying to level up that striking and get ready for somebody like a Calvin Kattar. So I'm with you here. I think this is going to be a striking battle. And unless Calvin Kattar is, again, unless he's just dust at this point, I don't think he'll fall apart in this type of a fight. It probably is a point fight. And you know what, James? Maybe you can help me with this, because I've actually been struggling with this. I've talked to a couple people. I can't seem to quite nail it down and figure it out. Are we using the old gloves? Are we using the new gloves? Like, what I thought Dana announced that moving forward, the old gloves were back to being the standard. But I've seen a couple people make mention that they're actually using the new gloves still. And with the way a lot of these fights are going to decision and stuff again, I started just kind of scraping the beard and being like, did he pull a fast one on us? Like, did they tell us that we're using the old gloves and then just keep it with the new ones? And we're seeing a lot of overs again because they lied to us. Like, do you have any idea what ones they're using?
I wish I did. I don't. That's actually something I need to look into as well. I'll ask around. There's some people I think who would probably know the answer to that, but yeah, that's something I'm not 100% sure of, because I did remember hearing the same thing. So
if you could call in a couple favors for us, let us know, because man, that is some interesting information for the gamblers, because it straight up was correlated, man. The old gloves led to more finishes. I do not know why my dog is going nuts. Bo is completely convinced that Calvin Kattar is winning this fight. Sorry, guys. I'm sure you can hear him there in the background. My bad. But yeah, the old gloves, I mean, it was that thick padding on their knuckles. It acted like a pair of brass knuckles. People got knocked out by that stuff constantly. The new gloves with the soft mesh and stuff like that, like, it just seems like, I don't know if it's the fighters are trying. Some people have said that they're trying to protect their hands because they feel like their hands will break, so they're punching not quite as hard, and stuff like that. That I think we're seeing more overs because of those gloves. At least we did last year. So I would love to confirm what we're actually using here in 2025, because as gamblers, that'll let us know, trend a little over, trend a little under, depending on what we're working with.
Absolutely. Yeah. Going to be a good fight though.
Yes, should be a very good fight. Very high level fight. It's exciting. Shout out Handsome Devil in the chat saying miss Uncle Wheezy here. Don't you worry, Handsome Devil. We'll get Wheezy back. You guys know me. I book a fabulous guest list for you guys on this show. That's my calling card for these podcasts. Is best guest list in the game. We will get Uncle Wheezy back on the show, but I've got a couple of check boxes we need to hit. So a few more people need to get back on the show. Wheezy's a regular guest, and don't worry, he will be back. It's main event time, everybody. We've got Jared Cannonier taking on Gregory Hobocop Rodrigues. Good fight here, James. Really, really fun fight. And Jared Cannonier, the most main events for somebody 40 plus in the UFC, maybe. Like, I don't know, he just keeps on getting slotted into these main events. It is crazy. He's 40 years old, training out of the MMA lab, on a bit of a tough run here, man. Lost the decision to Kyle Brallo in his last fight, and before that, lost that fight to Nasruddin Imavov with the slightly suspect stoppage, a little early maybe, where, man, I can't get my head around Nasruddin Imavov. I felt like I was fading his cardio. It was a fight that was very close. Jared Cannonier looked like he was maybe starting to take over in that spot a little bit. And then he got hit with one big shot. And we saw what happened to Izzy, right? Nasruddin can crack. So he got hit by a big shot, but it looked like he was okay. It looked like he was defending and recovering. Ref waved it off anyway. So it goes down as a TKO for Nasruddin Imavov in a very close, very competitive fight. This guy's still got it. Another late bloomer, similar to Angie Hill. Just an incredible physique. I cannot believe we're talking about working out. We need to get on Jared Cannonier's level, James. Like, my God. Gregory Rodrigues, 16-5, 32 years old, in his prime right now. The guy's on a win streak, 3-fight win streak, looking good. But this is, don't get it twisted, guys. This is a big step up in competition. Dennis Talulian, Brad Tavares, Christian Leroy Duncan. I mean, these are not names that you should be really writing home about. Chidi and Jaquani, Julian Marquez. I am not sold on Gregory Rodrigues, James. I've never been. And the one thing I will say is I've warned people about this guy's chin. He goes out there and gets into some of these wars and people think he's crazy durable, but like, look back at some of these losses. The TKO loss to Bruno Ferreira, that was a jab. Like, I know Bruno's got power. I know Bruno's got crazy power, but that was a jab that he ran into that put him out clean. Jordan Williams knocked this guy out on Contender Series. If you guys do not remember that name, Jordan Williams was like the diabetic from Dana White's Contender Series that was fighting in the wrong weight class because he couldn't cut weight like everybody else because of his diabetes. Like, that's who knocked this guy out. So he gets into these wars. He gets a little bit reckless. He puts his chin on the line, and he's been knocked out several times in the course of his career. I could see that happening again here because Jared Cannonier is a volume machine. Jared Cannonier is a guy that can go 25 minutes without thinking about it. Yes, he's 40 years old. Yes, he's getting up there in his age. Yes, he's on a bit of a bad run here in his last couple fights. But I don't think losing to Kyle Bahalo and Nasruddin Imavov are anywhere close to losing to a guy like Bruno Ferreira. And Brad Tavares is pretty well done at this point in his career. That was a great fight. You know, big of Gregory Rodrigues to get the finish in that spot. But this guy is violent. He likes to come forward and throw elbows. He likes to get on top of you and make you carry his weight. He's a black belt, even though he looks... He usually chooses to go for the knockouts rather than looking for submissions. But don't get me wrong, that is in his back pocket. He is capable of looking for subs if he wants to. I think Jared Cannonier could bite down on the mouthpiece and put this guy away if he really wanted to. He's been more of a decision machine lately when he's been fighting these top tier guys, but it seems like he rocks every single one of them in each of his fights. I mean, Marvin Vittori's been gone for like 3 years because of his fight with Jared Cannonier. Like, he got concussed repeatedly in that fight. I do worry about the fading durability of Jared Cannonier the older he gets. I think we see violence in this main event, James. I want to double check on those gloves, but I think we see an under. I don't think this is going the full 25 minutes, even though that's kind of Jared Cannonier's calling card. If he's getting off the way he should, I don't think Rodrigues can keep up. If Rodrigues does what he needs to do, I'm not sure Jared can take that beating these days. So I think violence is the answer in this main event. And very slightly, I kind of lean to the dog. I kind of lean Jared Cannonier a little bit here for my actual pick as far as who wins.
Yeah, I want to pick Jared. I do. Because again, I think that you know, he's fought like again, we look at competition here. You know, Imavov, who we just saw beat Israel Adesanya, finished him too. So maybe we underestimated him in that fight, and he finished Jared. And there was a bit of controversy there, but I think he still would have finished Jared at some point in that fight. You got Khaos, who did not finish Jared Cannonier, did rock him a bit, got the win there. I mean, these are two fighters that could be fighting for a title soon. So, and Gregory Rodrigues hasn't fought anyone close to that yet. So I'm with you. Like, I don't think Rodrigues is this like super prospect that people are sort of making him out to be. He's had a few setbacks already. I just, it's iffy for me. Like, I think it's tough because normally I would pick a guy like Jared Cannonier in this spot, but the fact that there's such a big age gap and like, you do have to wonder, like, are you getting the Jared Cannonier that fought Marvin Vettori? If we are, then he wins. There's no question about it. I don't know though. Now, I did interview Jared ahead of this one. You can find it on the channel. Not like any major takeaways, but again, another MMA lab guy. Like, you got to think like he's, you know, he seems confident. He knows that, you know, obviously there's been some setbacks and everything, but, you know, he really feels like he is the better guy. He may go out there and prove that. I'm just like, I'm also worried that I'm going to pick him and then he looks slow and then Rodrigues goes out there and does something. Now, the only thing I think is a bit of a saving grace here is that, you know, we talked about how, you know, Khaos looked good, almost finished him. And then you had Imavov who finished him too. I don't know if Rodrigues can do that to him, right? Because I don't put him on that same level. Yes, he has knockout wins, but you look at who he's knocking out. These are guys that aren't ranked. I mean, Cannonier is pretty durable. Like, you look at who he's been in there with, who he hasn't gotten finished by. Rob Whittaker. You got Adesanya. You got a lot of fighters that have knockout power that Jared's been in there with, and they haven't been able to take him out. Now, on the flip side, you have to go all the way back to the Derek Brunson fight the last time Jared Cannonier got a win too. Now, of all people, I'd say Rodrigues is a bit more chinny than some of the other guys he's fought. So it's really tough. I'm leaning Rodrigues. I really wish I could pick Jared here. I just, like, part of me feels like if I pick him, it's just like, we're not going to see the same Jared. And it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Cause he's like 40. Yeah. So I'm a little bit worried about that. I'm actually not betting this fight. I'm going to kind of sit back and relax. I may look at Cannonier. Well, sorry, not Cannonier. I may look at the fight goes the distance, as crazy as that sounds, but I could see a situation where, like, you know, because Cannonier needs a win here. Like, is he going to be as reckless? Is he going to go out there and try and get the finish when he knows that he just needs to go out there and win a fight? So that's where things get really tricky here. I'm leaning Rodrigues. I'm probably going to hate myself for it, but I got to take him here just for the simple fact that he's younger, and I think there's some upside there. I think with Jared, you know what you're getting, and I think those two losses, I think momentum's a big thing too. I think Rodrigues gets it done. So hopefully I'm wrong, because I would love to see Jared win. He's a great dude.
There you go. Well, hey, so a little bit of disagreement there on that main event. I see what you're saying, James. Like I said, I think under maybe more strongly than anything. So it could go either way, but I'm very tempted on this plus 170 here for Jared Cannonier. It's about as buy low as it can get. That was UFC Vegas 102, ladies and gentlemen. We got the whole card up and down, left and right there for you. Lots of fun spots on this card. Lots of fun fights, I think, on this card. Should be an exciting one. I do think there's a couple of opportunities here to make money, but not as many as I would like. You got to be careful on this one. Kind of like last week, there were some very sketchy matchups, lots of newcomers, lots of debutantes, lots of Dana White's Contender Series, and those are always fight cards where it's never quite what you expect it to be. So just be careful. I'm going to do my best to try to be careful. Only one sprinkle, guys. I get one sprinkle as decreed by James on this card. So we're going to be a little bit more careful this week and do what we can to get on track and make some money. James, my friend, thank you as always for joining us on the show. You guys make sure you check out his interviews. James, let them know where they can. Where can they find you and your content?
Everything's Lynch on Sports. So my YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all that stuff. It's all the same handle at Lynch on Sports. So I do work for a bunch of different companies doing interviews. By the way, you mentioned Spectation earlier. I do a bunch of interviews for them too. So shout out to them. Me and Ed Carbajal are the guys that do all the interviews for them. So check it out. There's actually a prospect I'll mention that's fighting on the Ignite card coming up here soon. Training partner of Bilal Muhammad. Keep an eye on him. Beck Mac. I got to find his name here. But anyways, you'll see it on, if you go to Spectation's YouTube channel, you'll see what I'm talking about. Go to Spectation Sports and check that out. And yeah, just like I said, everything is on my channel because I put it all in the UFC playlist. Every event, I put the the event playlist together, so that way all my interviews are in one spot. They're easy to find. So again, I got interviews with Jared Cannonier and so many other fighters on this card. And thanks for having me on, man. This was a lot of fun. I don't do many podcasts, but I always do yours. I always appreciate you having me on.
And I always appreciate it, man. You're my Colby Covington, all right? Like, I love having you on the show. Thank you for making the time for us, as always. Guys, that was fun. Make sure you're coming back. Of course, we'll do the Total Takedown on Thursday, the undefeated post-weigh-in show on Friday. The only real spot that I'm looking to really get involved with this week, Jose Delgado. That's the one that jumps out like a sore thumb. Maybe Angie Hill will be looking at. Might be taking a dog shot on my guy Khaos Williams. That number's already moving down just a little bit, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks, ladies and gentlemen. Black History Month, and it looks like I'm following the trend here on this card. So let's freaking get it. By the way, happy Black History Month out there to all of you who are celebrating right now, going on with all that kind of stuff. Thank you guys for supporting. Always, we're not going anywhere. We'll be back soon. Kick some ass, be good, win your bets. Let's roll.